Breakthrough Center hapa Nairobi, Embakasi Tasia, na ninasikia moyoni mwangu kabla atunja enda maybe kumaliza siku tukiwa katikati ya kuendelea vile ulivyo, tumshukuru Mungu. Na kabla tunja enda kuomba, maana nasikia kuomba kuita Mungu atende kitu. Hebu tuangalie Mungu anasema nini kwa maisha yetu wakati huu. Kitabu cha Yeremia sura ya 30 mstari wa 17. Jeremiah chapter 30 verse 17. Hivi ndivyo Bible inasema, for I will restore health unto you, and I will heal your wounds, says the Lord, because they have called you an outcast, saying, this is Zion, whom no man seeketh after. Listen, my viewer, wherever you are. This is the word of God. Actually specific, God is speaking about restoration. When God is speaking about restoration, there are so many areas anahitaji kurengesha. Na inawezekana, because specifically here is about health. And since the situation about tumeingia for the last 4-5 months, so many people are in doubt of their health. And so in such way, God knows what to speak at what time to who. So right now, wherever you are, I don't know who he is specifically speaking to, but I believe it is you and even our nation, because we need God for the healing. How? Healing of our finances, healing of our economy, healing of our health also. And right now, before we pray, I feel so much in my heart tuongee kuhusu uponyaji. Child of God, maybe hali imepitia, you've had a good job, lakini ile job imeenda chini sababu ya hali ya this kind of an attack that you have faced. Maybe umekuwa na hali fulani ya ugonjwa ambayo ilikuweka chini for some times. Maybe you've been discouraged by the situation from our upcountry, from the plot where you are, maybe where you expected upate kitu ya kukuinua, ya kukupeleka mbele, it is not coming. God has a word for you. He has sent me to you, specifically the word that I will restore your health. It doesn't matter in which area. It might be your life, your health, or the family health, or business health. Because when business is sick, no customers comes. When your office is sick, everybody is against you. Unapata boss is against you. Unapata other workmates are against you. You don't know what is happening, but it doesn't matter. Iwe ni mkosi umetupiwa na mashetani, iwe ni nini imeendelea. Maana wakati I have come to understand that sababu ya ile kitu inaendelea, watu wengi wamejaa chuki, na mtu anakuangalia tu anakuchukia bure. Sasa unashindwa, kwani nimewafanya nini wananichukia? I have good news for you this time. Today, I have come with good news that God is ready to restore. He is ready to put you back to his mind. Remember, you don't live as per your plans. Bible says, mwanadamu anatengeneza the plans, but the one who makes them to pass is God, in the book of Proverbs. So I'm here as a servant of God to tell you that all is well. You might be in pain. Maybe kuna uchungu unapitia. Maybe you are discouraged. Kuna SMS umepata. Kuna mtu wa Mungu alitumiwa SMS. Anaitwa Elijah. Alitumiwa SMS ya kutisha na Jezebel, na ikafanya toroke. I am here as a man of God to tell you, don't run away. God is with you. Don't run away. Your relatives may not be against you. Your boss may not understand you. But God says, I am ready to heal your finances. I'm ready to restore you. I'm ready to lift you again. Inawezekana hali fulani ilikuja ukaenda chini. Before we pray, I want you to have it in your mind. Though the Bible says that faith comes by hearing, and the hearing from the word of God. That's why I'm bringing the word of God to you, to develop your faith, that you may grow from faith to faith, from glory to glory. I prophesy to your life, your house, your business, that you are not going to remain at the same level. I decree and declare an increase, an input of the Holy Spirit, that will speak verba, where men spoke downfall in the name of Jesus. I want to pray with you wherever you are. I feel to pray. Kama unaniangalia na una mahali panauma, wekelea mkono hapo tuombe. Baba, katika jina la Yesu, you've said in your word ya kwamba utatuponya. Utaponya Kenya, utaponya maisha yetu. I have spoken to your child na ninatuma neno la uponyaji. Pokea uponyaji popote ulipo. Pokea amani popote ulipo. Kwa jina la Yesu Kristo mwana Mungu aliye hai. Sema amen. Amen.
I had a doubt.
On the next episode.
This is not my son's signature!
Of course it is, madam. If not, Mr. Pedro would have said something to me.
I'm telling you, the signature has been forged! This policy is not valid! I am sure of it.
How can you possibly think of me that way? Just think about how I feel after being with you for so long to be accused of something like that.
You are great at pretending, Juana.
What in heaven's name are you doing back in this house?
Mrs. Hortensia, please listen. I can't explain.
I don't need any explanations from you. My lawyer and I have discovered your little fraud.
What fraud is that?
Don't play innocent, because my son's signature on the policy was forged.
In love with Ramon.
Embakasi utawala tuko locked. Ungem Autanyaururu Kasuku Massive.
Jeshi ya Nyeri Maua na Kura kwa locked mbaya.
Kigumo Ward na ambao wote wako ndani ya KBC Channel 1.
Akulaliki Wednesday bila the ref.
Mbotela Auta Idara Kitengela.
Kiambu County 33 Pipeline Meru anawakilisha.
Rongai Maboxa pale go down. Karatina Auta Mlolongo wana enjoy show. Lare Sub County Auta Githurai 45. Lanet Barracks tuko ndani yake. Okongo Auta Carnation Maragwa Seti Nairobi.
Fika wako locked mbaya sana.
Watu wangu wa Nakuru Ungwaro.
Auta Gilgil live kutoka Mazeras Bahati Massive.
Embo Thika Massive.
Siaya Shikambi Kakamega Bungoma County.
Kusia Boda
Kisumu City.
Malindi yote iko ndani ya the ref.
When I'm in Kenya, I tune in to the rave. Get your mind brave, focus, conscious.
Kenya,
East Africa.
right.
Keep it locked.
Calling out to every can.
Good morning. Glad you could join us on KBC Channel 1. You're watching Good Morning Kenya. I'm Regina Manyara. Yesterday, what made headlines is that the national examinations have been cancelled, meaning no KCP, no KCSE, the domino effect of COVID-19. At the same time, Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe says the onus falls on you and I not to transport that particular virus, following, the new directives by the government that saw the executive lift some of the measures, including cessation of movement from would-be hotspots. On a spot check conducted by several of our reporters across the country, is that there's been movement en masse, and this is still ongoing, especially from the urban areas to the rural areas. What does this mean? Especially now that the people in the countryside are considered to be of the higher or rather older generation who are more susceptible to COVID-19. We'll be keeping tabs on that and also focusing on what is happening in the political scene, with headlines reading that DP Ruto is missing as Uhuru rallies cabinet. That and so much more coming up in the headlines. Do keep it right here. We remind you that we are live and our website is www.kbc.co.ke. My Twitter handle is @RayManyara, the station's official Twitter handle. And we welcome your feedback is at KBC Channel 1 News.
Well, this morning on our roads, we focus on what will be happening along Ngong Road. Remember that phase 3 of that reconstruction of that road is still ongoing. That is from Dagoretti all the way to Karen. Phase 1 and phase 2 was already complete, rather, and we have seen the kind of positive impact that has had in terms of the traffic flow. At least it has reduced the traffic congestion along that road. So this morning we tried to check on how that phase 3 is coming along, and also if it has really, I mean, the reconstruction of phase 1 and phase 2, if they really continue to just positively impact of that on that road in terms of traffic reduction. Also, we still continue to look out for some alternative routes, especially for our viewers going about their businesses this early morning. Also, I'll be speaking to Daisy Nyaga, CEO of Bridges Credit Africa, as well as an author on Manta's empowerment, specifically youth empowerment. This is how they can be able to navigate the employment scene and what more they can do beyond and besides just being employed. That will be our center of discussion this morning. Many thanks for making time. My name is Doreen Arangi.
Now, starting off with the stories making headlines as captured by several dailies this morning, we start off with the Daily Nation, and the front page there is the lost year. All children to repeat classes. Learners will start academic year afresh when they return to school, and this is in 2021. National Examinations Council, no primary or secondary school exams will be held this year, as well as universities to reopen in September. Now, higher education institutions allowed to reopen but under strict, COVID-19 safety guidelines. At the same time, as we have that headline, the last year on the Daily Nation, at the top there we have untold story of Wahungu and Waluhe case on page 10 to 11 on the inside story. Yesterday was Saba Saba, 30 years on. Have we achieved what we wanted as Kenyan as far as multipartyism is concerned? Well, 56 rights activists taking part in a march yesterday to protest against police brutality were arrested for flaunting COVID-19 rules. They will be appearing. Lockdown, just don't celebrate. End of restrictions on travel to and from Nairobi, Mombasa and Manyara is not a reason to celebrate, as it could fan the spread of COVID-19 and to other counties where most older people live and preparedness is low. That is according to the Ministry of Health. That is what I have on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. Crossing over to the Star here. What we have is a little bit different now, but still keeping focus on matters of politics. DP Ruto missing as Uhuru rallies cabinet. Now, Kenyatta outlines his priorities for the new financial year, insists on completion of projects. There, the picture there is one of, Saba Saba protests and in tears after police disperse activists. Remember, 56 of them will be arraigned in court today. Also captured on the front page is, on the big read, is that how people living with AIDS struggle with discrimination. And also we have a standoff. Tussles over revenue sharing formula could jeopardize handshake. That is what we have, or rather what I have on my end as far as the front page of our papers this morning.
Well, still on the front page of the Standard this morning, matters to do with the school reopening and what was said yesterday by the CS Education. That is Professor George Magoha. The caption just reading, mass school repetition, where it continues to say that it is pain for students and their parents after government declared 2020 lost year following a decision to delay reopening of schools to next year. That story has been captured well inside the paper, so we'll be getting to unpack more of that as we look on more of what is inside the paper. Still on the front page, matters to do with worship, where it says that it will take more than prayer. Just saying that all eyes on religious leaders of all faiths after President Uhuru Kenyatta allowed houses of worship to reopen, since a small lapse could lead to a South Korea kind of situation where one person becomes a super coronavirus spreader. That is what is happening when it comes to matters church. Again, on the sidebar of the same paper, coming to matters politics, another Ruto ally thrown out of House leadership, where Kirinyaga woman representative, that is Purity Ngirishi, replaced with Kiambu's Gathoni wa Mushomba in another parliamentary coup. Again, also we'll be getting to unpack more of what has been written inside the paper when it comes to matters politics. But sticking with education and basically what was said yesterday during the presser given by the CS Education, that is Professor George Magoha at KICD buildings. Just keeping up on that, still again on the same paper, just inside the paper, the header reading, Virus Eats Away 2020 with its students' dream. We also have the image of the CS there, but just continues to say that the safety of learners, teachers, and the rising number of COVID-19 cases has forced the government to suspend this year's academic calendar. It just says that consequently, all the 15 million pre-primary, primary and secondary school learners will repeat their respective classes starting from January next year. This also affects those in private institutions, including those who pursue foreign curriculum. Also continues to say that speaking yesterday at the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, or IFEMI, the KICD, the CS said this year's school calendar will be considered lost due to COVID-19 restrictions. So that means that this year's school calendar for pre-primary, primary as well as secondary education students will be lost, and this is due to the adverse effects of COVID-19, because it has become more important to protect the children, and that is only going to happen if they are at home. But still keeping up with matters education, and this is also what was said yesterday. Again, there's a caption here just on the downside of the paper reading, Magoha spares varsities, colleges of year-long closure over COVID-19, where it says that universities, teacher training colleges, and technical institutions will be allowed to reopen from September 2020. This is subject to strict adherence to COVID-19 protocol. So that means for universities, for technical institutions will reopen, but just after following strict COVID-19 protocols. But just says that suspending classes for basic education until January next year. Education CS, that is George Magoha, spared universities and tertiary institutions on the advice of COVID-19 response emergency committee. And there's a bite from him just saying that reopening of universities for face-to-face sessions will be on a case-by-case basis based on approved compliance with the Ministry of Health COVID-19 protocols. Universities should consider phased reopening to achieve physical and social distancing, especially in halls of residence, lecture rooms, and dining halls. That is what the CS yesterday. So in as much as, yes, it was closed for pre-primary, primary, secondary schools, and even for those in private schools, but at least he was able to spare the universities as well as the technical institutions. But even at that, he still said that they need to follow the right protocols, and also it's going to be a phased reopening of the same universities as well as technical institutions.
How about to get the sounds and pictures of that particular report as prepared by our reporter Kamche Medza.
Following consultations with stakeholders in the education sector, comprising of top officials from the Ministry of Education, teachers' unions, private teachers, parents, health experts and the clergy, a decision has been made to reopen basic education in January 2021.
This is based on the assumption that the curve will have flattened, or we shall have known a little bit much more about this virus.
The parents of this country feel that school should reopen after the curve has flattened.
The principle of equity for all children
wherever they are in the Republic, in accessing of education is one of the greatest guiding factors.
Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha, who led the stakeholders in briefing the public on the way forward, says the minimum reopening conditions set by stakeholders to ensure the safety of learners and teachers have not been met.
Schools should only reopen when the daily percentage of confirmed COVID-19 cases have reduced consistently for at least 14 days, which we call in medical terms flattening of the curve.
The unmet conditions now forcing the government to shelve its initial proposal to have Class 8 and Form 4 learners resume in September 2020, which it says is no longer tenable.
There will be 2 Form 1 classes in 2021 academic year. The country will experience very severe equity challenges, which may be constitutional in nature, when only 2 basic education classes reopen and transition while all the other children lose the year.
Loopholes have also been foreseen in shortage of classrooms. Current Form 4 candidates are 752,836, while those in Class 8 total 1,191,326.
Which would mean then that even if we had the intention of using the space left by Form 4, we would be having a deficit of in excess of 438,000. Therefore, it shall be difficult, in fact not difficult, it will be impossible to achieve social distancing.
With the outstanding challenges, stakeholders resolved that all basic education learners in Grade 1 to 4, Standard 5 to 7, and Form 1 to Form 3 in 2020 will remain in the current classes in 2021.
There shall be no KCPE for the year 2020. Number 2, the 2020 Standard 8 and Form 4 cohorts will sit their examinations later in the year of 2021. And number 3, the school calendar of this year will be considered lost due to COVID-19.
This means current Standard 7 and Form 3 learners will not do the KCPE and KCSE next year. However, teacher training colleges and TVET institutions will be allowed to reopen from September 2020, subject to strict adherence to the MOH COVID-19 protocols. For universities, they will only be allowed to resume lectures after thorough inspection that they have met stipulated guidelines. Kamche Menza for Channel 1 News.
Back to stories making headlines and keeping up with the domino effect of COVID-19 is that now counties are not prepared to handle the high virus numbers. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe yesterday ruled out coronavirus referrals to Nairobi, however, and saying there is that we are heading to an unpredictable place and not sure if hospitals in Nairobi will cope. Now, the ministry has given the green light to home-based care for asymptomatic patients last month, but with strict guidelines. Now, should the situation of a patient at home deteriorate, the family would have to make many calls to get a hospital bed. Now, that's a report that shows that counties are not prepared to handle the high virus numbers. There on that list, in that particular story, it has highlighted, capacities in various counties. And there is a kicker there that says Governor Anne Waiguru's Kirinyaga has only 1 intensive care unit bed and no testing center. Vihiga has no ventilator or ICU beds, yet it has 300 isolation beds. Elgeyo Marakwet also doesn't have any ICU bed or ventilator, but it has 241 isolation beds, while Turkana County has no ventilator, no ICU bed, but 150 isolation beds, 54. Tana River has 0 ventilators, 0 ICU beds, and 43 isolation beds in total, while Lamu has nil, no ventilator, no ICU beds, and 30 number of isolation beds. Now, looking at Machakos County there, it has the total number of 31 ventilators, as well as 30 ICU beds and 423 isolation beds. Nandi has 10 ventilators, 10 ICU beds, 366 isolation beds. So you can get your copy of the Daily Nation and just have a look at how your county is faring in as far as, COVID-19 preparedness is concerned at a time when, the Ministry of Health has already given a warning that we are headed in unpredictable times going forward and that Nairobi might not have the capacity to take in referrals. Actually, referrals are not going to be coming in through Nairobi, and counties have to deal with their patients. Still keeping up on matters COVID-19 is that Kenyans still can't travel due to lack of public transport guidelines. Now, eager would-be travelers disappointed as PSVs are not allowed to operate without regulations. Now, it had been expected that inter-county bus services would be operational yesterday. Quite a number of people had already booked tickets immediately after the president's speech on Monday. Now, the situation yesterday was, however, the opposite, as operators continued parking their vehicles just like in the past 3 months, while others opted to take their vehicles for servicing. That is, as we continue just looking at the domino effect of COVID-19. Ahead here, it is back to business as Kenyans disregard ministry guidelines. Many people are not wearing their masks or observing social distancing rules. Are you? That's the question. And now what will this mean in as far as, the spread of COVID-19 is concerned? So far, Kenya is ranked at position 10, with 8,250 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 167 deaths, 2,504 recoveries. Position 10 in Africa, with South Africa leading with 205,721 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 3,310 deaths, 97,848 recovered cases of COVID-19 in South Africa.
Well, still keeping up with COVID-19 and looking at how it is affecting different counties, there's a story here just of what was said by the CS again. You must treat your own. Kagwe tells counties as surge in cases expected, where the government has said that counties have no choice now but to equip their health facilities to combat COVID-19, as there will be no airlifting of patients from upcountry to Nairobi for any specialized care. It also says that the health CS Mutahi Kagwe said, with an expected surge in cases after partial lifting of restrictions, each county should do due diligence to ensure they are ready. Now, this comes after the reopening of the 3 counties, where the CS is now saying that it's upon counties to take action, and it is actually the responsibility of every county to ensure that their people are protected, because no one will be airlifted from any part of the country to come to Nairobi for any specialized treatment. So ultimately, that means it is up to the county's responsibility. Again, still on matters COVID-19 and coming to the places of worship, remember that this is also a story that was on the front page of the same paper, which is the Standard, and it just says that all eyes on men of cloth as houses of worship reopen, where houses of worship are banking on more than just prayer, not to be labeled as agents of spreading COVID-19. And this is after they settled on Tuesday next week to reopen for congregations, for congregants. How they will behave is one of the matrices that will determine if the country survives this pandemic or drowns in it. It just continues to say that a small lapse could lead to a South Korea kind of situation, where one patient became a super spreader to over 1,000 others during religious gathering in March. Again, it's also very important for me to mention that of all the establishments of public gatherings, churches, mosques, and temples are the only ones allowed to operate. So this means any other kind of public gatherings, such as bars, entertainment joints, all of these are still closed, and it's only the churches who've been allowed to open up, and that is inclusive of churches, mosques, as well as temples.
How about we get the sounds and pictures from that particular report? Remember, it has elicited a lot of debate in regard to, you know, the opening up of religious places of worship. And are they ready to adhere to the laid down guidelines come Tuesday? Here's a report by Irene Mchuma Odim.
The 22-member Interfaith Council has announced reopening of churches starting the 14th of this month. The Interfaith Council says reopening will be done in 4 phases, depending on the situation of the infection trend and levels of compliance in congregation gatherings. The places of worship will be allowed to conduct more than one service, but limited to maximum 100 persons per worship session.
It is a kind of a pilot to the major phase that will enter within those 3 to 4 weeks, which the Interfaith Council will review as we go ahead.
Congregants must wear masks and observe 1.5 meter social distancing. Duration of worship session should be 60 minutes on the maximum. Thermoguns will be deployed to detect those who may have indicators of illness.
This is self-regulation. We must embrace that, show our discipline, and each congregation will actually find a good formula. Each church or each mosque or each faith will have a formula that is adapted to their circumstances.
The directive, as per the president, will be enforced, and children below the age of 13 years and those above 58 years will not be admitted for services.
They are more vulnerable to catch the infection, and so we really are safeguarding and protecting their lives. So it isn't a prohibition, it is a way of telling them for the time being it doesn't seem safe in the circumstances that we are in.
Irene Mchuma Odim, Channel 1.
From the reopening of churches and what religious leaders are planning to do is what takes us to our next story of the day, which is concerning matters politics, where another Ruto ally booted from helm of parliamentary caucus, and yet another ally of the DP, that is William Ruto, was booted yesterday from a top parliamentary caucus on account of alleged failure to offer visionary leadership. Now, this ally of the DP is Purity Ngirishi, the Kirinyaga women representative, and the chair of Kenya Women Parliamentaries Association, or if you make a WOPA, was removed by her colleagues weeks after other Ruto allies, including herself, were cleared of parliamentary committee leadership. So that is what is happening this morning on Matters Politics. Again, another of Ruto allies removed from one of those positions, and this position is that of the Kenya Women Parliamentarians Association. That is Purity Ngirishi.
Now, still focusing on some politics, is that the Deputy President, William Ruto, made it to the front page of the Star this morning, and it says that the DP Ruto missing as Uhuru rallies cabinet. Now, the kicker there is that Aguko spokesman says he was not invited to the high-level virtual meeting held yesterday. Details, let's just look at the details. You know, the political dynamics are changing, ever changing, especially with succession politics taking center stage. Now, there on that particular story is that some sources said Ruto has not been able to attend most of the high-ranking government meetings unless outrightly sanctioned by the president handlers. Now, in a statement from State House, Dana said the president reiterated his earlier directive that no new projects will be initiated except with his express authority, asking officials to strictly implement projects within the set timelines and budget. In his address, the president said the government's focus this financial year will be the implementation and completion of ongoing priority projects and programs as set out by his administrative transformative agenda of the nation. That is the president's speech there, as read by the State House spokesperson, Kanzadena there. Still focusing on matters politics is that Jubilee goes after Yala lawmakers over arrears. Now, Jubilee MPs from the East African Legislative Assembly have been given 7 days to clear party subscription arrears, a failure to which they risk losing their positions. Named there, rather pictured there, is Nur Muhammad, Florence Sagon, Simon Bogwa, and Wanjiko Mohia. Matters of politics, things are changing. The way things change, some of them remain the same. Now, Wiper Party is also represented by Kalonzo Musyoka's son, Kennedy Musyoka, while ODM is represented by Raila Odinga's elder brother, Oburu Odinga, and former Bambala MP, Abdikadir Aden, and former Wajir woman representative, Fatma Ibrahim Ali, were also in the assembly. That's just the constitution of the Iala Assembly. And now talking about, the deputy president appearing to be missing one of those top level or the high-ranking meetings. He had something to say about the issue of corona. Now, he has called, deputy president has called on Kenyans to adhere to the laid down guidelines to prevent the spread of the deadly COVID-19 disease. Now, he was speaking as he hosted a team of clergy from Nyeri at his current residence, led by Bishop William Githenji of the Victor's Chapel. Now, Ruto said that the phased reopening of places of worship, as announced by President Uhuru Kenyatta, was a cautious move that now places the responsibility of confronting the coronavirus pandemic on individuals. Kip Nusu has more details on that particular meeting.
Mheshimiwa Rais alitangaza ile mipango na taratibu imewekwa kufunguliwa kwa nchi kwa mambo ya uchumi, kanisani, mambo ya shule. Lakini ni vizuri tuelewe vile rais alisema ya kwamba tutafaulu sio kwa uwezo wa wale wanaoshughulikia mambo ya amani Kenya, na ni ya muhimu. Sio kwa ujuzi wa madaktari na wauguzi wetu na mipango ile tumeweka, na hiyo pia ni muhimu. Lakini ni kwa mambo yale tutafaulu, kwa mambo yale kila Mkenya atafanya. Pengine ni madogo, kuhakikisha kwamba umeosha mikono, umesanitize, tumeweka social na physical distance, na tumefuata taratibu ambazo ni rahisi ambayo imetolewa na Wizara ya Afya. Hiyo ndio itatufanya tufaulu kama Wakenya kwa ile changamoto tuko nayo.
Away from matters, COVID and the reactions in regard to, the new measures to ensure that we stem the spread of COVID-19, we cross over to the issue of corruption and the quest for justice. NCPB, the big read today, dirty game. The maize deal led to a fallout between Jacob Juma and big people, and that is possible that his death had everything to do with this case. This is a new twist of the NCPB citadel of corruption. How 297 million shillings vanished. Now, John Waluhe told the court that Nairobi lawyer Ahmed Nasir ought to have been charged for monies he received. Now, apparently, the lawyer received 45 million as legal fees, but the Chief Magistrate Elizabeth Juma appears to have closed the question, saying the financial transfer between the advocates and the accused persons appeared to have been mutual. This is a big read as we follow up on one of the main stories that has drawn a lot of comment, across the country. Is this the first quest for justice, or rather the justice system dealing with corruption? 297 million shillings vanished there. And there's a paper trail, or rather, a trail of how the money moved from different accounts. That is the 297 million shillings in question. Nancy Baraza got legal fees of 5 million. Ahmed Nasir and Abdikadir and co-advocates legal fees of 40 million. A check withdrawal beneficiaries not stated of 16 million. Grace Serape Wahungu, 40 million. John Kioni Waluhe, 50 million. Soitan Ascended advocates legal fees of 34.3 million. You can get to read more about that on the papers. Remember, this has been captured in the Daily Nation this morning. Now, also the retrial of 2 rugby players begins. Now, the former Harlequin Rugby Club players have been granted bail after being freshly charged with raping a local musician 2 years ago. Mr. Florence Frank Wanyama and Alex Mahanga Olaba denied the charge at the Milimani courts yesterday. Now, the court has given them an alternative bond of 500,000 with a surety if they fail to raise 300,000. Wanyama and Mahanga were ordered to return to the courts on 21st. Now, still keeping up with justice and the legal system as well as the legislature is that it is not the end of the road for embattled Governor Anne Waiguru. Apparently, the County Assembly has moved to the High Court to challenge the Senate decision to acquit Kirinyaga Governor Anne Mombi Waiguru. Now, through their lawyer, Ndego Njiro, the Assembly wants the High Court to quash the report of Parliament dated June 26, 2020, which dismissed the County Assembly's resolution to impeach Waiguru. How about we get a detailed report from the corridors of justice as prepared by reporter Ben Troy Njoe.
Kirinyaga County Assembly impeached Governor Anne Mombi Waiguru on June 9, 2020, accusing her of, among others, abuse of office and gross violation of the law. However, 2 weeks later, she was acquitted by the Senate. Now members of the County Assembly have revived their push to oust the governor by seeking intervention from the courts. Through their lawyer, Ndego Njiro, the MCAs have filed a case at the High Court in Kerugoya seeking nullification of the Senate decision, arguing it is in total disregard of the Constitution and the laws. Njiro further said they will petition the High Court to compel the Senate to reconvene and reconsider the impeachment solution. According to Njiro, the County Assembly will also petition Chief Justice David Maraga to constitute a 3-judge bench to hear the matter.
We want the court to interrogate the entire process of how the Senate dealt with this case. Because we have looked at the report, we have actually annexed it here, and does not represent the actual position of what transpired in the Senate. The Senate actually ignored all our evidence. Then they further told us that you have not brought sufficient evidence. What other evidence do they want?
And 2 male rugby players who had been sentenced to 15 years imprisonment for rape have been released on a 300,000 shillings cash bail after denying fresh rape charges. Magistrate Zainab Abdul, while granting Alex Olaba and Frank Wanyama bail, noted that the court was not bound by the previous proceedings, but noted the 2 faced serious charges and warned them against interfering with witnesses or the case.
The charges herein are very serious. However, it is the accused person's right to be released on bail or bond if there are no compelling reasons advanced by the prosecution to warrant the denial. Setting of bail terms is at judicial discretion.
Olaba and Wanyama have been behind bars for the last 10 months after they were handed a 15-year jail term in August 2019. Last Wednesday, Justice Ngenye Masharia of the High Court ordered for a retrial after dismissing the evidence of 1 witness on a technicality.
Each accused person may be released on a bond of 500,000 with a surety of similar amount, or in the alternative, a cash bail of 300,000. Number 2, the accused persons are directed not to interfere with the witnesses.
The former Kenya Harlequin Rugby Club players were accused of gang raping a musician at Sifa Apartments in High-Rise, Nairobi on February 11th last year. The case will be mentioned on July 21st, 2020. For Channel 1 News, I'm Ben Troenjue.
From the corridors of justice, coming to another shocking story where shock as mother plunges children herself into the river. This is a story from the western part of the country. Luyeke village on the border of Kakamega and Bungoma counties is still in shock. And this is after an expectant mother threw her 3 children into a river and then jumped in herself. And just continues to say that Winnie Kulangwa, who is 24 years old, threw the children into River Nzoia at Mikua area about 9 p.m. on Sunday. And by last evening, search for bodies of Miss Kulungwa and her 2 children aged 1 and 4 was still ongoing, but the woman is said to have taken the children to the nearby Nzoia bridge and threw them into the water, one after the other, starting with the eldest, a 7-year-old girl who survived. So threw the 3 children into the river, but luckily the eldest survived, who's 7 years old, but they still continue the ongoing search of the other 2 children. But keeping up with matters, children now coming to Athi River, where a post-mortem on Athi River children inconclusive. This is what was said by the government pathologist yesterday, and it will take longer before the police can establish what killed the 2 children whose bodies were found in a car. This is in Athi River Police Station. Now, a post-mortem examination on the bodies of Alvina Mutheu, who's 3 years, and Henry Jackson, who is 4 years old. These are the 2 children. That post-mortem did not reveal the cause of death, but more tests, including forensic examination of maggots collected from their decomposing bodies, are only hope left to unravel the murder mystery. But also, among the reasons why the post-mortem exam failed to reveal the cause of death is that the body parts were decomposed, and this is of those 2 children, that is Alvina and Henry Jackson in Athi River.
Now, still keeping up with just bizarre happenings and, just bordering on issues of insecurity, is that Anjoro family endures a night of rape and beatings. Now, the 5-man gang forced its way into the Rumwe village homestead and first attacked the head of the family. After the man was overpowered, the men tied the children and made them watch as 2 of them raped their mother. The gang then took one of the family's chicken and slaughtered it. As they cooked the chicken, they made fun of the family and raped the woman again. They then prepared the ugali and made their meal before leaving with cash, a gas cooker, a bicycle, electronics, solar panel package, and other household goods. And it was not until early in the morning that the family raised the alarm, prompting neighbors to call the police. Unfortunately, the gang had already escaped. This comes at a time when the president also just highlighted the high level of insecurity and the the rise also of gender-based violence and just attack within the family units. Quoted there is that I am concerned by increasing tensions in our homes. Cases of gender-based violence have gone up. Mental health issues have grown worse. Instances of teenage pregnancy have escalated. That is quoted as President Uhuru Kenyatta. We must remember that the family is a projection of the state. If the family is under attack, the state is under attack. If the family is weak, the country is weak. That is the head of states. Yes, when he was delivering that particular speech, quoted there, just highlighting the growing number of gender-based violence. Surely, this gang of 5 who did this to this family, the trauma that the mother will have to undergo, the husband who happens to be a father of the children who witnessed what happened to both the father and the mother, they are going to live with these scars for the rest of their life. Something has to be done. Now, crossing over to similar stories that are making headlines across the counties, as prepared by our reporter Halid, is that police in Narok County have rescued a 14-year-old girl who had been abducted and forced to cohabit with an older man as a husband and wife.
Police in Narok County are holding 5 suspects who are celebrating after one of them allegedly married a 14-year-old girl. Narok Central Assistant Deputy County Commissioner Abdul Galagala said the suspects were arrested following a tip-off from members of the public.
Tulifika huko kweli kwamba tukaona kwamba msichana mdogo kati ya miaka 14-15 hapo tuliweza kumpata wakiwa wameficha kwa nyumba, na tukaweza kumshika mwanaume ambaye inasemekana kuwa amemoa, na pia tukapata wenzao ambaye kwa watu kadhaa ambao walikuwa pamoja.
Elsewhere, police in Likuyani sub-county have arrested a high school teacher suspected to be the mastermind of motor vehicle thefts in South and North Rift regions.
So anybody ambaye watu wana suspect ya kwamba anaweza kuwa anahusika na mambo fulani, ni vizuri kupasha polisi habari, tuweze kufuatilia ndio tuweze kuruti watu wachafu kutoka community.
The Embassy of Iran in Kenya has organized a virtual cartoon festival competition in Africa on COVID-19. The Iranian ambassador to Kenya, Jafar Barmaki, says the competition targets those in quarantine by giving them an opportunity to share their artistic messages on how to combat COVID-19.
While, we are facing with fragile health system in Africa, so we have to use whatever tools we have at hand to send the messages to the people, so to take care of themselves and their families.
Elsewhere, sugarcane farmers and farm workers have faulted politicians from Western Kenya region for criticizing the reform's sugar sector. And a section of teachers in Manyara County have resolved to donate part of their salaries to assist colleagues hardest hit by the COVID-19 pandemic.
As much as we're not part of the government and we should be expecting salaries from the government, I wish teachers were part of them. They would at least have something for us.
Laikipia members of County Assembly have pledged to work with the county government to deliver better services to residents of the region.
Let us appreciate the independence of the arms, but at the same time work together in a coordinated manner to make sure that we are able to help and uplift the lives of the Laikipians.
And the government has lauded youth who are using innovation to complement ongoing efforts to curb the spread of COVID-19 in the country.
When a ventilator in the market goes for 2.7 million, here we have our own locally produced one by our own young people here at Kenyatta University, going for around 800, 700. So that's quite an achievement.
Finally, long-haul bus operators based in Mombasa City have welcomed the decision by the government to allow them back on the road, but say they could be forced to hike fares between destinations.
Nauli watu abiria ambao watakuwa wakibebwa sasa ni abiria 30. Na nauli tumeweka kwa shilingi 2,000, hatutaki kuumiza raia sana.
Stories making headlines different parts of the country in different counties. We now come to Matters Business and look at some of the stories that have been highlighted this morning in our dailies when it comes to business. And Masmat says 1,800 game jobs at risk. And again, this is just obviously due to the adverse effects of COVID-19 that has seen many people lose jobs, has seen many people have to part ways with pay cuts. And the same situation is happening in Masmat, where this is a South African retailer, Masmat Holdings, that has started talks with unions to cut up to 1,800 jobs at the farms struggling game stores, as constrained spending and the new coronavirus only in Kenya, where the adverse effects of COVID-19 have affected different sectors, different retailers, different stakeholders, that has resulted to a lot of job losses. This is also happening in different parts of the world, different parts of the African continent, and that specific story just shows us what is happening in South Africa and the number of people that are now set to lose their jobs due to the effects of COVID-19. But away from that, in Matters COVID and in regards to business, we come again to another story, still on Matters Business, where the state, and this is now in Kenya, it has halted mandatory SGR use, and the government has now suspended the mandatory use of the standard gauge railway, or the SGR, handling a lifeline to truck operators in the region. Now, this is in a notice yesterday where the Kenya Ports Authority said the decision was made following engagements with players in the logistics industry and the transport ministry. Now, the use of the Mombasa-Naivasha SGR cargo services remain optional, and the KPA said in a notice the earlier order issued jointly in August 2019 by KPA Managing Director and the KRA Commissioner General, mandating the use of the SGR remain suspended. So now at least that means that for truck operators are the ones that are going at least to be, using that specific line as they head over to any kind of businesses, whether transporting cargo or even just transporting people, that is from Nairobi to Naivasha, since the SGR has been halted in that specific region.
Still keeping up a sharp eye on matters of business is that pilots take on KQ chiefs over ongoing sackings. Now, so far, 22 pilots have already been shown the door and 160 more to follow. In its support, the Central Organization of Trade Unions, that is called to threatened industrial action against Kenya Airways over the layoffs that targets 182 pilots and more than 400 cabin crew. And whereas that is happening, tourism players are hopeful as travel resumes. At the same time, CS Najib Balala has urged Kenyans to embrace domestic tourism to help the sector recover. Now, to support safari products, is that Balala last week reduced the park entry fee for Kenyans and international visitors by 50%. This means that you can go to the Nairobi National Park and only part with as little as, 150 shillings. Yes. So indeed, we need to support that domestic sector, tourism domestic sector, one of the worst hit due to COVID-19. So far, Kenya has lost 81.8 billion shillings in tourism revenues since COVID-19 affected global and domestic travel. Focusing still on business, but now looking at matters transport, is that border delays have pushed transport costs through the port of Mombasa. Now, delays occasioned by measures to curb the spread of COVID-19 has increased the turnaround time taken by, trucks. Still focusing on matters business, just to give you an overview of what is happening in matters business, is that the horticulture sector has shrugged off COVID-19 to earn Kenya 72 billion in 5 months. Yes. Now, returns boosted by high demand for fruits and vegetables during the period. Now, data from the Directorate of Horticulture indicates that earnings rose to 72 billion between January and May this year, from 65 billion the same period in 2019, representing an 11% rise. Fruits registered higher growth compared to vegetables and flowers, lifted mainly by high appetite for volumes in avocado. Yes, healthy fats, avocado there. Lot of traction in as far as trading and exports are concerned. Now, banks are seen lowering deposit rates, that commercial banks are likely to lower the cost of funds and increasingly retreat to government securities in the coming months in a bid to cushion their profitability. This is according to analysts. I'll get to have an overview. While that is still happening, is that President Uhuru Kenyatta says completion rate of projects and programs will be adopted as a key performance indicator for all cabinet secretaries, chief administrative secretaries, and principal secretaries. This means that priority has been given to the implementation and completion of ongoing projects and programs as set out by his administrative transformative agenda. And that will be the focus of this fiscal year, 2020-2021. Current ongoing priority projects are set to be given priority in this fiscal year. Betty Kiptum puts that report into perspective.
The government is now focusing on completion of the development projects during the year 2020-2021. The President, while addressing Cabinet Secretaries, Chief Administrative Secretaries and Principal Secretaries, outlined government development priorities for the year 2020-2021, which kicked off this month. As a measure of accountability, the President said that completion of projects will be a performance indicator for the Cabinet members. He called for collective responsibility in the implementation of government projects and programs through the involvement of entire ministerial establishments so as to ensure timely delivery of quality outcomes. The head of state said these programs must be strictly implemented within set timelines and budget, adding that his earlier directive that no new projects will be initiated except with his express authority still stands. President Kenyatta acknowledged the current difficult economic environment occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic and reminded government departments to settle pending bills as a key priority. In support of local industries, the President said the government must walk the talk of Buy Kenya, Build Kenya agenda and directed all ministries, state departments and state agencies to give preferential procurement to Kenyan-made goods and services. Betty Kiptum, Channel 1 Business.
Now that puts a cap on matters in the headlines this morning. Remember, in case you missed any of our news updates, they are available on our website. www.kbc.co.ke is a place to find the latest in regard to matters politics, as well as what is happening in the business world, as well as sports. Now we take a short break, but in return, we focus on other issues, including the issue of empowering, the young people, as well as hearing from frontline workers the challenges that they have underwent since, Kenya confirmed its first case of COVID-19. Do keep it right here. We'll be right back.
Next on.
Ngoja niulize jamaa, nani hapa hivi amepimwa hivi majuzi?
Pale kwa Mwangi, si ni 10 bob.
Sijasema kupimwa weight. Saa hizi kupimwa HIV ni haraka na ni bure.
For others, it's business as usual. Togo became the first country in Africa to hold elections just days after the first COVID-19 case was confirmed in Egypt. In March, Guinea, Mali and Cameroon held its parliamentary elections, followed by Benin, which held its local elections on 17th of May, but employed cautionary measures such as cancelling campaigns and public gatherings of more than 50 people.
Uko na HIV, si eti ni mwisho.
Wewe uko nayo?
Mimi nilishapima.
Afya bora, maisha bora. Jipime, jiinue. On the next episode of
Shika. Masudi, mimi mfuko wangu hautoshei hela ndogo kama hizi. Yaani ukiniangalia hivi nafaa kubeba hela ndogo kama hizi. Keep change.
Mwachikanini.
Takuja kitu. Takuchapa ngoni. Hakuna aliyena kichaa wala sijui uko juu gani hapa. Hakuna. Mimi ndo niko chini ya kitanda. Si ndio? Sasa una yupi pia?
Basi wajui mimi.
Unini mkola wewe na Viki kwanza kakuona juu pale juu. Uliona? Karibu kusalimia kwambie ngomba panda juu. Ungeniambia.
Tujali kazi zenu
Joel huwa tumi mtu. Safari hii mwambie ajiletee mwenyewe. Get out of my house. Get out. You will regret. Bwana Kisaka. Vipi? Nilikwambia uende zako ndo usirudi hapa kabisa.
Umechiki kama? Kama yuko eri, hata bibi yake pia yuko. Sasa wewe na Kasheshe Mob, nani amekuuliza story ya bibi yake? Mimi nadai kucheki tu kama. Hiyo story tumeshoka nayo na tumeshoka nayo.
Na tena tuko na stress zetu huko. Unajua hivi?
Nishukue Mungu. Shukuriwa. Nilikosea kabisa kuoa.
Unamaanisha nini?
Kazi ni kuchekeshana huku tu. Hakuna kitu kingine.
Ndio mapenzi hayo.
Wacha ikae.
Five minutes to the top of the hour, time for our fast traffic link-up segment this Wednesday morning. Our focus being on Ngong Road, and I want us to start from where the second phase of the reconstruction process was happening, and this is around the Prestige Plaza. This is actually where the first phase ends, and then the second phase starts from Dagoretti going all the way to Karen. So this is how Ngong Road looks like this morning in terms of traffic. This is the one of those latest roads to be reconstructed, at least just to make it easy for residents that ply this route going about their businesses, because again, it is one of those busy road, and this road was just reconstructed to make it a dual carriage road. First of all, to ease on the traffic flow, make it easy for pedestrians and residents along this specific route as they go about any kind of their businesses. The first phase begins actually from the Kenya National Library going all the way to the Prestige Mall Plaza. The second phase begins from Prestige Plaza to Dagoretti, and the third phase from Dagoretti all the way to Karen. Again, also it's very very important for me to mention that this is one of those roads that was reconstructed, and Kenyans were saying that it is time for counties across the country to look at this road as a benchmark, because when it came to the reconstruction process, it was one of those roads that, they just ensured that the non-motorized transport system that I keep mentioning about was also, just reconstructed, and this is to mean the cyclist lanes as well as the pedestrian walkways. I had shown you images of this road some time back, just trying to show you how it looks like and how the reconstruction process came along. But this morning, let's just focus on traffic. And like I mentioned, beginning from Prestige Mall Plaza, especially as you head over to the city center, clearly the gridlock can be spotted there, but it's not really, that heavy, traffic snarl up, especially like how we'd expect to see in this early morning hour. In as much as, yes, there's traffic there, and it's not like what I normally used to like saying that actually there's a bit of traffic. This is just heavy traffic snarl up. In fact, it is not even moving at all, and this is specifically on the lane that is leaving Ngong Road as you head over to the city center, and also it is only specifically around the Prestige Mall Plaza. But again, also it's very important for me to say that the reason as to why there's traffic here, or even the traffic being at a standstill, an indicator it's not moving at all, it's because around this place, it is next to a mall, next to the Prestige Mall Plaza. Also around this place, it is a bus terminus. So this is again the reason as to why we'd expect to see this road looking the way it's looking like. But also just for the benefits of our viewers, you can spot the difference in color on both lanes. On the upper lane, which is the lane that is leaving the estates that ply Ngong Road as you head over to the city center, we are seeing the maroon color there, an indicator that it is at a standstill, in fact not moving at all. On the other lane, that is actually the lane that is coming from the city center as you head over to Ngong Road. There's no traffic at all. In fact, moving pretty fast. That is what that green color means there, just for the benefit of our viewers to understand why there's a difference in color there, along these two lanes. But again, also on this other lane where there's no traffic at all, it's because we don't expect to see any of that in this early morning. And even in as much as we might see that, it's not really, we don't really expect to see that much of a heavy traffic build-up, because it is on the lane that is leaving the city center as you head over to the estates. And it's very obvious. We don't expect to see any kind of numerous activities on that specific lane, simply because it is the early morning hour, and it is very obvious that people are heading to their workstations, heading to their businesses. So ultimately, that is why we'd expect to see traffic on that lane, which we are seeing, and that is on the lane that is leaving the estates as you head over to the city center. But look, that has now changed. I keep telling you time and again, traffic changes every single minute. Just a couple of minutes ago, when you were looking around this place, which is around the Prestige Mall Plaza, it was maroon all through, indicating it is not moving at all. It's just at a standstill. Now that has totally changed, and now it's red. So now what this red color means, again, for the benefit of our viewers, is that traffic is still there, but moving at a pretty slow pace again. So what that means is if you're coming from Ngong, from Dagoretti, from Karen, and all these estates that ply this specific route, then you may just have to make do with this traffic. And this is especially if you're coming from these specific areas heading over to the city center. So you may just have to make do with this traffic, because along this specific area, then there's no any other alternative route. So that means you may have to make do with that traffic. And also, sadly enough, is that this comes all the way from Prestige Mall Plaza, going all the way along Ngong Road as you head over to the city center. And in fact, in some areas, in some parts of this same specific lane, it's just at a standstill. So this color keeps changing between red and maroon, indicating that traffic is at a standstill, and in some other parts moving at a pretty slow pace. But that's that in terms of traffic around the Prestige Mall Plaza, especially as you head over to the city center. Again, just a bit of a traffic gridlock around the Adams Arcade roundabout, but just like in areas where it is either a bus terminus or around malls. Also around roundabouts, we would expect to see traffic build up, either heavy traffic snarl up or moving at a pretty slow pace, because I keep telling you time and again that roundabouts connects to a number of roads. It could be major roads or even minor slip roads. And on this specific roundabout, it doesn't connect to major roads like how we normally see around roundabouts in areas or on roads such as Outer Ring Highway, Thika Super Highway, or even Mombasa Road. On this specific one, it just connects from Elgeyo Marakwet Road, Suna Road, one of those sleep roads there, as well as coming from Ngong Road and going to Ngong Road. So there's just a bit of a traffic gridlock on that lane that is coming to the city center. I mean, again, it's the early morning hour, so this is obviously also what you'd expect to see. And I've already mentioned to you the reasons as to why we'd expect to see traffic snarl up on the lanes that are coming to the CBD in the early morning hours, unlike the lanes that are leaving the city center as you head over to the estate. So on that specific lane, as you just come to that roundabout going all the way to the city center, that is where there's a bit of a traffic snarl up. But again, look at this. It's different from what you are seeing earlier on around Prestige Mall Plaza coming all the way to the CBD. Most of what you were spotting there was more of the maroon and the red color. But when you come to just before you get to the Adams Arcade roundabout, there's that orange color there. And again, for the sake of our viewers to try and understand what this difference in colors means, when you see that orange color, it's indicating that traffic has just begun to slightly build up. So what that ultimately means is that it is a manageable kind of traffic. So that means that you can make do with that kind of traffic. But also, again, it's very important for me to mention that there's no any other alternative route. So that means if you're coming from these areas that I just mentioned or the estates that apply this specific route, then this could be the best time for you to do that, because in as much as in some areas there's a bit of a traffic, or in as much as in some areas the traffic is moving at a pretty slow pace, but at least at least as of now, because when you get around 9-10, then you'll be seeing a total different situation. So at least it's this could be the best time for you to do that, and this is just in terms of traffic as you come to the city center, leaving the Adams Arcade roundabout, going all the way to the CBD. In fact, but then actually after you leave the Adams Arcade roundabout, then just looks, it's like a smooth sailing for residents that apply that specific route, because after that area, then there's barely any traffic this morning. But I had mentioned to you that we'll also just try to look at any alternative routes, and that means if at all we find any for our viewers who are using this road going about their businesses as you come to the city center. But that's that in terms of traffic this morning. Remember that you also have other conversations slated for you this morning, so stay tuned for that. Ray? Now that was a good update of what is happening on the roads this morning. And just to remind you is that Kenyans still can't travel due to lack of public transport guidelines, and that was on a spot check that was conducted yesterday. Now, it had been expected that, inter-county bus services would be operational as of yesterday, and quite a number of people had already booked tickets immediately after the president's speech on Monday, wherein, among other things, he lifted the directive on cessation on a hotspot counties, that is Manyara, Mombasa, and Nairobi. Now, apparently, the situation yesterday was, however, the opposite. The operators still had their cars parked at the terminus, saying that they opted to take their vehicles for servicing, while others also said that they had to still comply with the laid down guidelines, so they were not ready to ferry, the passengers as expected. Now, in Kisii, dozens of travelers were stranded as there were no vehicles, and operators expressed frustration at government for causing the confusion. Now, calls and text messages to Transport Cabinet Secretary James Mashari apparently went unanswered, and that was yesterday. Will this have changed? If you have been driving or you haven't left the comfort of your home, you need to brace yourself for some serious traffic on major routes, as explained there by our Traffic Marshal A1 Doreen Arwange. Kenyans are at it again, just going about our normal duties. But as you go about your normal duties, trying to, keep a roof over your head, remember that you need to remain safe. So sanitize, distance, maintain distance, and, wear a mask. Wear a mask, sanitize, and keep distance. Let's not transport this virus. And those who are moving from peri-urban areas to the rural areas, you need to be a bit more cautious.
than the rest of us who are still sticking and trying it out in the urban centers, because we know in the countryside is where we have a huge number of, you know, older people who are more vulnerable to this COVID-19 virus, whose, you know, cure is still, you know, unknown. So we need to just work at prevention, because curative measures are not yet known. So do be careful, exercise caution as you travel, whether within the CBD or back mashinani to conduct your business. Mind yourself as you mind the person next to you. But now we cross over, or rather we'll be discussing on our interactive segment in not too long, the issue of empowerment. What do you need to do to get yourself rising again, maybe after a shortfall or maybe after something has gone wrong? We're going to be talking about that, and my colleague will be handling that, as well as hearing from the horse's mouth, frontline workers within the nursing care system. What has changed since Kenya confirmed its first case of COVID-19? What do they want to see change in this, so that they can feel safe as they continue to give, or rather render these services that we already have projections that, you know, the services, nursing services might not be adequate going forward given the rise, you know, in COVID-19 cases. We'll be talking to frontline workers drawn from different parts of the country, including Isiolo. So do keep it right here.
And welcome back. Time for our first conversation of the day. Our focus being on matters empowerment, specifically youth empowerment, how they can be able to navigate the employment scene, and also what they can be able to do beyond and besides just being employment, as well as matters retrenchment. That is going to be our center of discussion this morning. And I'm joined on set by Daisy Nyaga, who is the Chief Operations Officer of Bridges Credit Africa, and she also doubles up as an author. Good morning, Daisy.
Good morning to you. Thank you for having me.
All right, just before you go to the whole aspect of employment and even retrenchment, giving us your story, maybe you can just tell us about Bridges Credit Africa, what it is and what it does.
All right, thank you very much, Doreen. And as I've said, I'm very happy to be here. Yeah. So Bridges Credit Africa is a financing company that works to empower business people as well as youth. So we offer tailor-made financing solutions. One of which I find very innovative, and possibly I'll mention it here, is that we empower youth within the estates to own and operate tuk-tuks.
Wow.
Those are the three-wheeler tuk-tuks. Okay. So that is one product that I'm very proud of, because it gives young men and women the opportunity to have an income at the end of the day. Yes.
That's really interesting. And when you talk about empowering young people and the youth, how many youth have you empowered so far?
Wow.
Can you give an account?
I would say very many, and I have many stories that I can narrate of people that possibly don't have the right papers, in quotes, to get themselves, you know, a white-collar job, but just by holding their hand, making them see an opportunity of how they can build a small business, giving them the finance and the capacity building. We have seen such kind of people actually grow to people that are even employers of labor. So you find that somebody could start off with one tuk-tuk, they employed as a driver. But when we work with them, we make the driver, and we enable the driver to actually end up owning a tuk-tuk, and that makes them now an owner and an employer. 1 year down the line, they've already paid off the first tuk-tuk, and they are able to now employ a driver for that tuk-tuk as they acquire a second one. So there are so many stories, and these are the kind of youth that move from that. They come together in a group, and they're actually able to even purchase land as a group and develop, start putting up their homes, you know, start diversifying businesses for their spouses. So the housewife who was at home, well, the husband possibly, or the spouse, is on the road, within a year or 2 years, they have been enabled to start a separate business. So there are so many, they're in their thousands, and possibly,
huge
hopefully,
number.
another day we could be able to showcase them and they tell their story.
They tell their story.
Yes.
Oh, Daisy, I like what you've said that, you know, by empowering these young adults, you're even making them to be employers of other people, which, you know, just does away with that story of someone has to be employed in a specific company for them to make a living.
Most definitely. I think what is very important for Kenyans to know is that life is not just about you walking into an office, sitting all day, doing some job in the office,
sitting behind a
computer and a desk. There are so many opportunities in what I would call juakali and conventional. Seems dirty, it seems tiring, but the opportunity actually lies there.
And these are areas we haven't explored even as a country? Do you
have
think
barely
so?
scratched the surface.
Why?
A lot of factors. One, I believe government policy also needs to change. I believe the government needs to put in place policies that support cottage industries so that we're able to tap into agricultural sector. Because when you look at it, why do we import toothpicks? Honestly, why do we import tomato paste? Because if you are really an organization or a government that wants to empower the youth, they'll put in place a policy that will enable farmers at the least village come together, form a small cooperative, buy some basic, value addition equipment, and support them to package that tomato paste, which is then distributed to a supermarket. So number one, I pray the government will work more towards putting the right infrastructure and policy in place to support value addition of each and every product that we grow. Number two is our training system. A lot of our training institutions of higher education, I believe most courses have been put together with the thought of being employed. Could our universities, our colleges, our technical institutions, such as now the TVET programs, empower people to work with their hands, to develop products, So training is another aspect that we need to keep working on so that children as early as 15, 18, the moment you leave high school, you need to live with a skill that you can start exploring and specializing, not just papers. Okay. I have a diploma in this, I have a certificate in this. What can I do? What skill do you have? Right. What can you do with it? Okay. So there's a lot, we're on the right road. I'm glad that the government is now very particular on the TVET programs because that will enable youth to have skills that they can actually work with their hands and implement and form a business around the skill. But there's still so much more to be done, especially in policy.
So basically what you're saying is that the biggest issue we have, even for us as a country, is the policy. That we need to really look into that.
Yes.
All right.
And also now the mindset of people. Well, so that needs to start changing right from a very young age. Don't be told go to school, get a degree and go knocking on doors. So a lot has to be done from a young age. Yes.
And Daisy, we'll be coming to that mindset aspect a bit later, but let's just keep up with the issue of this youth that you are empowering. And you told us that yes, it's a significant number, and especially in the estates, and I want to believe that is in Nairobi. So are you planning to go beyond Nairobi, probably in the interior rural setups, to continue empowering even the same youths?
Yes, and thank you for that, because already, as much as we are mostly in Nairobi, we have already begun working with small groups. We have youth from Machakos that have already started acquiring tuk-tuks from us, as much as we do not have an office right there. We have youth in Nakuru who have already begun inquiring, how can we go down there and support them? So yes, there are plans to go out there, and we shall continue to work with them, especially now after the COVID crisis. You realize that dispensable incomes have become, have shrunk. So even transport tastes and modes of transport are changing. We've seen a lot of people adopting.
You can get.
Exactly. People are actually adopting and appreciating boda boda.
Yeah.
Faster, cheaper.
Yeah. You can get it anywhere.
You can get it anywhere. So there are plans, yes, and we've already begun on that, to actually now spread out to the rest of the country and empower these youth. So just give them the opportunity to own this asset, train them on defensive driving so that they're actually able to run their business with minimal traffic incidences.
Yeah.
And thereafter, help them to invest, give them capacity building, the little money that you're making, the 1,000 at the end of the day. Now, how do you invest it to work for you? So that you don't have to work for the rest of your life,
doing the same kind of thing. So that means you not only just give these youths these tuk-tuks to help their lives by empowering them, you also offer them proper training to understand how to use them.
Yes, we do.
All right.
Capacity building is very key because you realize most of them may not have really gone through the formal
training.
Education. Maybe most are dropouts from class 8, form 4, or probably they didn't finish the university. So we realize for the venture to be successful, to have this person become whole, we have to give them a lot of capacity building. Train them. How do you manage your tuk-tuk? How do you manage that business? How do you invest the little that you're making, little in quotes? Because those guys can go home with about 1,500, 2,000 at the end of the day. That's a lot of money at the end of the month. In a day. But now you need to guide them. At the end of the day, what do you do with that resource? How can you increase and multiply your business and employ other people?
All right.
Yes.
Now let's come to your book, Beyond 8 to 5.
Yes.
What necessitated the writing of this book? Because you're also seeing them in front of the table.
All right. Thank you again. Sometimes I look at this book and on such a platform, I get a bit emotional because
it touches you a lot.
It touches me and it takes me a lot back to, where I've been. And it is where a lot of Kenyans have found themselves in during this period. So this book, Beyond 8 to 5, Critical Lessons by Retrenchee, is a book I wrote after losing my job suddenly at Kenya Airways way back in 2012. And it was rather sudden because one day I came from a flight all the way from Amsterdam. You've worked the whole night.
Well, it really it's really getting emotional because, in this time, the least you would expect to see even someone telling you a story of how they lost their jobs. It's so emotional given the kind of hard times you're living, in as people and even as a country. So for you, it was that sudden?
It was that sudden, and I want to encourage every Kenyan that possibly they've already lost their job because of COVID, possibly they're on a pay cut, a large majority actually on unpaid leave. I want to encourage them that you can go through that and you will go through that experience and come out stronger. And I'm here to possibly share my story so that they can connect, that they will actually be able to make it through. So as I said, I came from a flight, an 8-hour flight from Amsterdam. I landed in Nairobi. And of course, when you've been away for 2-3 days, the first thing you do is switch on your phone. You want to see who's been looking for you.
What's happening?
I mean, what has been happening in Kenya? I've been away, and many messages come in. And I received this message from the company saying there's an urgent meeting at 2 o'clock later that day.
That day that you've just arrived?
That same day that you've just arrived. And it was a must-attend meeting. I recall that very well. So, of course, you're too tired. So you keep asking each other, have you received a similar message? Quite almost half of us had received the message. And so it was like, so what could this be all about? Then we recall there had been a rumor going around or some information that there could be a retrenchment in the coming month or 2 or so. So to cut the long story short, 2 o'clock came. We attended the meeting. And shockingly, when you're at the meeting, you're called for your letter. You open the letter. In the meeting. Of course, after a briefing that, because of 1, 2, 3, 4 reasons, we have had to retrench X number of staff. Unfortunately, you're one of them. Wow. Remember, you were at work that same day. So that was rather sudden.
No one prepared you?
When there's a rumor going around, there had been some information that there's a retrenchment in the offing, but nobody knows when is this going to be until that day, So nevertheless, I got my letter, I opened it. I thought it was a joke, actually, because I'm like, I've just come from a flight. So how is this happening? So nevertheless, the shock hits you. And I went home that day and I was like, so you mean tomorrow I'm not reporting to work? So are you telling me that tomorrow I don't have to wake up for my next flight? So the shock hits you and it's devastating. And so I can imagine what most Kenyans are feeling right now, because COVID was rather sudden. In February, we had our businesses running very well. We had already planned for our income in March, April, May. But now the story is different.
Everything just changed.
It changed.
It took a turn.
It just took a turn, and many Kenyans I know are lost. They're devastated. They might be angry. They might be depressed and stressed. I am here to tell them, you will go through this, but there are things that you need to do so that you can make through this period, this very uncertain period. But speak out, share your sadness, reach out for assistance, for support, but you will make it through. So that's how sudden my retrenchment was.
Wow, and that is what brought about the writing of this book, Beyond 8 to 5.
Yes.
So is it more of an encouragement to people that are retrenched, people that are losing their jobs, taking pay cuts, for young people to be empowered to just not live in employment only? Is it what it's all about?
The book is about much more than that.
Okay.
In the book,
so there's extra than what you're talking about.
There's extra.
Okay.
So in it, I have shared my story. Yeah. But besides that, I'm also speaking to the employed person. Somebody is already in their stable job. Possibly they've not lost their job, but they're in a comfort zone. So I'm speaking also to that person and telling them, hey, your employer is not your mommy or your daddy. And actually, that's the title of my first, that's my first chapter. Because that's what I learned.
That anything can happen.
Anything can happen. And if a company releases you, never take it personal. They've had to do so.
Don't start hating the company.
Don't hate the company. Don't hate your supervisor. Somebody has got to sign the letters. Somebody has got to take a decision for the company, and it's not a pleasant decision.
And as much as it's difficult and a very tough decision for both parties, by the way.
Exactly, for both parties. So I tell people, don't take it personal. Release any form of bitterness, and then you ask yourself, I am here in this situation. What next? What next? I am here. I need to eat. If you have children, they need to eat. You need to pay your bills. I am here. I don't have a job. So what next?
What can I do with my life? Now, this is what is happening. What can I do?
That is the thing. And you need to make those decisions very fast.
Yeah, and we'll be coming to that employment bit just in a bit to understand, especially for those that are already in employment. And just to remind our viewers, I'm speaking to Daisy Nyaga, the CEO of Bridges Credit Africa, as well as an author. She's talking to us about matters empowerment, specifically also youth empowerment, how they can be able to navigate the employment scene and how they can live beyond and besides just being employed. That is our center of focus this morning. And now, Daisy, coming back to you on the aspect of employment. Yes. What makes it so easy for someone to be so comfortable, especially for young adults? Because first of all, it's difficult to get a job. And the minute you get a job, you just get so comfortable with the payment, with the job itself. You don't think outside the box.
True.
What brings about that?
Wow. I don't know if that's how we are wired, but it's very natural. You've searched and searched for a job. You've gotten a job. You're like, phew, nimefika, you have arrived, you know. Let others look for the job. But I challenge everybody, including myself. The moment you're in a job, whether you consider it a good job, ama job ya kushikilia, you know, we have that language of ini ya kushikilia tu. Nikitafutanga ingine. The moment you get yourself into a role, into a job, start thinking, how can I maximize this opportunity? No matter how small your role is, how can I use this opportunity to build myself? Is that
maximizing the opportunity while you're in that employment space?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. How do I start maximizing this for the two of us? To build myself, yes, and grow with the role, and also for the company, you know? Never look at your employer or your organization as a place to leech. You know that you say, nimefika hapa, so now I will use all their resources to just build myself, and then you're off.
Especially if you've been looking for a job for the longest
time possible. So I challenge people, if you're employed, two things. Give of yourself fully. Do your job to the best of your ability. Give 200%. Because in the process, as you do that, you grow as a person. You know, you grow as a person. So always position yourself in a win-win situation with your role. That's number one. Number two, enter into a job and always realize you could be replaced at any one time.
That which they normally keep saying, no one is indispensable. Anything can happen any day, anytime.
Any day, anytime. And COVID has shown us that. It was beyond people's control. It was beyond some employers' control. Business just isn't good. And so we have to let people know. So the moment you have that realization every single day, trust me, you won't get into a comfort zone. Every time you walk around, as you do your job, you'll be somehow on the lookout for opportunities to build yourself. And I'll just give you an example. Figure out how can you be a valuable employee. As you're doing your role, figure out how can you be so valuable to your employer such that even if they have to let people go, they're like, apana, let Doreen be the very, very last person. You know? When you have that mindset, trust you me, even if you're eventually retrenched or you lose your job, it will be very easy for you to locate another opportunity or for another opportunity to find you. Number two, you will always be mentally prepared to just adapt to the new situation that you're in.
Not to be shocked when things happen and wonder, why did they pick on me? Why did they do away with me?
Exactly.
Okay.
And you'll not be paralyzed because that's something that affects a lot of people. You're in a paralysis. You've not accepted.
You've not accepted.
And so long as you've not accepted your situation, you will never move forward.
You will never even grow.
And time waits for no man. Yeah.
Wow. So was retrenchment more of a wake-up call for you to develop other skills, like even the writing skills, empowerment skills? You know, was it more of a wake-up call for you?
It definitely was. And number one is I was not financially, I had not, you know, like saved
as at that time.
As at that time.
Okay.
I was always sure my paycheck will come in
again,
on the 18th.
That mindset.
Comfort zone.
All right.
Not even 25th, 18th of every month. I
so
knew my paycheck.
20th,
whether I'm in Kenya or I'm outside the country, I knew if I go to the ATM, I will get money. So this was a big wake-up call because on the month I was retrenched, September, the 18th came. And Daisy, who had not accepted, still went to the ATM, believe it or not.
And you already know you've been retrenched.
I already have a letter, but I was still not in I was still in denial.
Okay.
So I went to the ATM and I'm like, maybe the payroll guy still processed.
Maybe just 1 extra month.
Maybe 1 extra month and they didn't tell us in the letter. So that's how bad a denial can be. Because the whole month you're in denial and you're hoping maybe it's a mistake. So in short, accept. It's only when you accept your situation that you're able now to open your eyes and see opportunities. So it was a wake-up call for me. I realized that, hey, you know what? I could have done some things better. I could have managed my finances better. I could have had an emergency fund that could have seen me through maybe 2-3 months as I figure out my new situation. Besides that, it also helped me to realize that I need diversified streams of income, not just rely on one stream, the employment paycheck. So ever since that moment, I'll always be, you know, building an extra stream of income
there's
here and
here
there.
And there's something there also on the side.
Yes, with my extra time. Again, if you're employed in full-time employment, remember you must sacrifice. You must create time to try and build an extra income in one way or the other. Yes.
So is this more of like an encouragement statement, especially for young adults, since that's what you're trying to at least focus on this early morning, especially also for those who are still in employment to understand that even though they are young, even though they at least have jobs, they can still do something on the side.
Yes,
they can still develop their skills.
Yes, they can. And there are many ways of, there's what I call building a fallback plan. What's your fallback plan? If you are to lose your job, for example, God forbid, what would you fall back on? You know? Number one, you can make yourself so valuable, you know, and acquire more skills such that should you even leave your employment, you can either start your own with the skills you have, or you'll be a hot cake in the labor market. Somebody else would be looking for you.
Yeah.
So for people that want to grow in their career, start immediately. Don't wait. Develop your skills, learn more skills, you know, grow professionally. Number 2, as a fallback plan, you can start side businesses. And I repeat again, without interfering with your day job. Avoid conflict of interest. Empower somebody else. Start a kiosk in the estate. Employ somebody. Empower one more person. And I always wonder to myself, if the millions that I employed gave an opportunity to just 2 people, 2 younger people, our unemployment rate would be very low. So I always challenge people, if you have, you know, if you're entrepreneurship minded, if you're the kind that always wants to do business and you're still employed, start very small and give that job to somebody else, 1 or 2 people, and empower them. That again can be a fallback plan. So should you lose your job, you can now focus on building that business
that you already started while you're still in employment.
Exactly.
Okay.
Number 3, and most important, emergency funds. Emergency funds. You know, set aside a very small amount every month. Work through your budget. Put aside 1,000, 2, 5, 10,000. Invest. I tell people,
don't just
invest.
save.
Don't just save.
Okay.
Invest in what I would call an emergency fund. You need to put it in what I would call safe assets, safe investment classes, such as the money market fund. It is so easy. You open a money market fund, put in 1,000 bob, 2,000, 5, 10, depending on your budget, and that acts as your emergency fund. So if anything happens and you have no income, or your pay cut has been, your paycheck has been cut, you have a fund that can buffer you as you look for another opportunity.
Okay.
So that is what I always tell people, those 3. Yes.
All right. Now, Daisy, those are really very important statements, especially when it comes to saving and even investing. But for most young adults, they would say that whatever I'm getting from that company, I cannot be able to even invest. I cannot be able to even save. And that's why probably for me, I'm just enjoying and living life with, with what I have. What would you say for such young people? Because the reality of life is that anytime, anything can happen.
All right. To my YOLO friends, you live only once.
You live only once.
So long as you have the realization that I need a contingency fund, you will get the money out of your budget. So it just takes willpower for you to work through your budget. You need to cut a few unnecessary expenses so that you get that 1,000 to 5,000 extra to invest. So it's really just about that realization. Because trust you me, if right now somebody is told you will be out of work in the next 6 months, trust you me, that budget, you will cut it.
And they will find a way to help them make it through.
Exactly. If they are told in advance. You know, if people are told in January next year, you'll be out of work. Trust you me, between now and December, that person will have cut their budget, I'm sure, even by 50%, because they know
they have to survive come January next year.
Come January. But the problem is, life doesn't give you notice. Sometimes things just happen. And it's not just about job loss. It could be a medical crisis. It could be an accident, you know.
Things you don't have control over.
You have totally no control. It could be an act of nature, you know, a natural disaster. So the thing is to realize that life doesn't give notice. You just need to have the wisdom to understand that in the event of any negative impact, I need to always have something that is kept aside waiting for such a moment. If it doesn't happen, we thank God, because your money is still growing anyway.
Yeah, it's still growing, and you're still having your money.
Yes, and the beauty, just before probably move on, the beauty of an emergency fund, it also avoids you from getting into unnecessary debt. Because if you find yourself out of work, you have no savings, you have no emergency fund, how do you survive? You borrow, right? And that digs you deeper and deeper into debt. So having an emergency fund, whether you are out of work or not, also helps you to avoid unnecessary debt. Because if you need anything, you won't borrow in, you have something put aside.
Yeah, you have something put aside.
Yes.
Now, let's come to that aspect of skills, Daisy.
Yes.
Because oftentimes when you think about building skills, we just think I have to go back to school. And someone would say, I'm already working. Where will I get time to go to school, get time to open a business on the side and still go to build a skill? So how does someone get to build up their skill, which they can still, which can still help them during employment and even after employment?
All right. My mentor once told me that lack of time is the excuse, is the first excuse of the procrastinator.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
So you'll always find time for things that are important to you. And I always give this example. It's actually even in my book. If you tell a woman that there's a very important event tomorrow at 5 a.m. and you're telling her this at 4 p.m. the previous day, trust you me, she will find the time to go look for the outfit. She'll find the time to go to the salon. She'll find the time to get ready. So you'll always find time for what you feel is important to you. For that person that is committed to build a skill, you will find the time. It just means you will drop some things and take up others. So number one for skills, look out for free learning opportunities. Number one, online. The digital space has offered us a lot of resources on the internet. We have universities, top class universities, including Harvard, and they always have some free courses that you can attend. We also have very affordable courses online. So you may not need to walk into a class physically to learn a skill. Search for them online. Number three, YouTube. YouTube is a good friend of mine. Search anything, how to, on YouTube. It's a free resource. All you need is data bundles. And you will learn the skills. Another thing, look for somebody that is already in that space.
Where you have interest.
Where you have interest. Reach out to them and request them to mentor you or request to work with them, whether for pay or pro bono. Yeah? So it depends on what actually is. So how do you reach out to these people? Start on the digital space.
Digital space again.
Do they have a Facebook page? Do they have Twitter? Do they have... Reach out to them, you know, never get tired. The other thing is networking, you know, attend events. It's very uncomfortable when you're trying to get into your next level because it forces you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But you see events, there are so many flyers flying around. If you see events that have been put up, attend, whether they are online or they are physical, you know, attend.
A chance for you, especially as a young person, to network.
To network. Okay. And to even get mentors, people that can mentor you, you know. So when you leave your house, you know you are not what I would call an underdog, but you know you are deficient in some skill. But gather the courage, walk into those events and sit and listen. Identify one or two people who are possibly in your area of interest. Walk up to them, introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Daisy and I am a student, or I do this and this. Do you mind?
I'm interested in this and this.
Let me tell you, people are very kind out there, and they will give you that opportunity.
So sometimes just perception we have that, how will they listen to me? Do they even know me?
They don't know you.
So sometimes it's just that perception we have.
That is the thing. Okay. It's a perception and a mindset, you know? But the moment you walk up to somebody, you reach out to them, trust you me, I have never been turned down by anybody. They may not do it right there, but they'll always tell you, wow, thank you for asking, but yes, I'm available. I can do 1, 2, 3 for you. Okay. It could be a very occasional interaction, 1 in 3 months, but it makes a difference. So network, identify people to mentor you, to work with you, and you'll definitely not be the same. and time is not an excuse.
Okay, and these are the various ways, especially the young people can be able to build up their skills, not just to be so comfortable that I have a job, I have a pay, I have a salary, so I'm good to go.
Yes.
So these are some of the ways they can be able to build up their skills.
Yes, and also read.
All right.
Before I forget that.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I say that not because I have written the book, but it actually said that 2 aspects that can totally change your life. 2 things. Besides the God factor. One is the people you meet.
And the books you read.
And the books that you read. And that I can attest in my life. So read. You may not consider yourself an avid reader. But just go and identify books.
Just
even
get
on the
some
street.
knowledge. Just get some information on
some information. So read. Join book clubs. You know, in a book club, even if you're new to reading, they will read collectively and start sharing the nuggets from the book. So even if you never read the book fully, you'll end up getting nuggets from that whole book. And I actually belong to a book club. That's why I'm very passionate about book clubs. Yes, and it's called Readers and Leaders Book Club, which is an arm of the League of Young Professionals. So read. You'll also get skills from that.
Wow.
Yes.
This is so profound, at least to help us understand, for those in employment, for those who don't have jobs, that you can still do something beyond, you know, employment. You can still do something even if you lose your job. But now let's come to the other aspect of you as a person, Daisy, where you are also the president, is it of the Rotary Club of Nairobi. What does it entail? What do you do there?
All right. So it's actually the Rotary Club of Nairobi South.
Oh, okay.
Yes, of Nairobi South. Thank you very much. So Rotary is a global organization. It's a service organization with thousands of clubs globally. And Rotary brings together people that want to take an action to change their communities, make a lasting change in their community. So Rotary has 6 areas of focus. When they bring people together, we are saying that we shall look for ways to improve our community around the 6 areas. So one is maternal and child health care. So a Rotarian anywhere will always be looking for a way to improve maternal and health child care around their community. Another area of focus is peace, promoting peace. Another area is disease prevention. We also focus on the environment, which has just been recently added as an area of focus. And we also focus on education, you know, promoting literacy.
So as the aspect of reading also coming out.
And that comes out.
All right.
And remember, we are working with our communities, you know. So as a Rotarian, you identify a need in the community. We are volunteers. You bring your heads together. How can we meet that need? How can we offer a solution? So you fundraise, you partner with organizations, and collectively do projects. So you will see a lot of projects, especially in Kenya, that have been done by Rotarians. We have dug wells in arid and semi-arid places where children could not, where the community could not access water. We have built schools, we have built latrines in schools, we have provided books. We do sponsorships for children, you know, needy children that are very bright but do not have enough finances to go through education. Dispensaries have been built, donations of medicines, free medical camps. So there's a lot that Rotary does. And just to take you back to the discussion on how to develop skills, I encourage people out there. It doesn't matter your caliber in life. Join a service organization such as Rotary. It will give you the opportunity to work with fellow people, to give back to your society. There's always something you can give.
So is it more like volunteering?
Yes, it is actually a volunteer organization. And I always say there are 3 things you can give. There are those who say I don't have money, so you can't become a Rotarian. There are those who say I don't have the time to go to the community and do the voluntary service. There are those who say they don't have the energy. So regardless of where you're at, whether you're a youth, you're middle-aged or you're aged, you can serve with your money, resources. You can serve with your time, you know. You can serve with your energy. So we also have what we call the Rotaractors. Rotaractors are youth that are being groomed to become Rotarians. So mostly there'll be people in the university space, in colleges. I would say they may not have the money to donate, but they have the time and the energy.
And that is what they can give.
And that is what they can give.
Okay.
So do that. For somebody like me, possibly, I may have a little money to support the project and also a lot of energy. I can run around. So that is what I'll give. To our senior citizens, they may have the money, but they may not have the energy to run around, you know. So for those ones, they'll give their money and their ideas and their guidance. So when we all come together, we create lasting change in our communities. So I invite people to look out Rotary and join the organization also.
Okay.
Yes.
Then just finally, as you try to bring the conversation to a close, Daisy, what makes it so hard for young people to be volunteers or even to offer volunteer services? Because again, that's what you're saying, that can be able to build up their skills, which can help them either in the employment setup or just beyond employment.
Again, it goes to mindset.
Okay.
Because as people has been brought up, the mindset is, I'll go to school, get a job and get paid for everything I do.
Because I've gone to school.
Because I've gone to school.
That mindset of I have papers anyway, so you need to pay me.
You need to pay me, exactly. So it's a mindset change that needs a lot of working towards to change. They need to understand that when you volunteer, you become better at a skill, you learn different skills, and you network. And the networks that you make as you volunteer are the same networks that you will exploit when you're looking for a job, possibly, when you're looking for a business deal. Yeah. So it's a win-win situation. You give of your time and your energy, and it gives you visibility, what I call visibility. I know Doreen shows with us when we are cleaning the river.
Yeah.
So when the time comes for you to look for a job, I'll always remember that. And I will go out of my way to maybe let you know of opportunities. So to the youth, volunteer. Let lack of payment not be the hindrance. You will improve your skill and you will network with people in the society that can actually usher you into opportunities in the community.
And they can really help you.
Yes.
So volunteering is good. And sometimes it's not always about the pay, whether or not you feel like you have the papers and you have the qualifications.
True.
Sometimes it's just always about trying to show someone what extra you can do.
True.
Okay.
True that, yes.
And also, Daisy, I read one of our statements from the testimonials that people are giving about your books, and there's one that just read that your employment is someone else's vision. Wake up and build your own. What do you have to say about that?
I agree with that statement. All right. And I would say that statement speaks to two people. It's a bit controversial. But that's the reality.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. It is it's the reality. Your employment is somebody's vision, yes. Yeah. So while you're there, help that person, help your employer to achieve their vision while you search for your own. Okay? And it does not mean that you cannot thrive in employment. That is where people always get it wrong. Because there are people that want to thrive in a career and profession. Mambo ya biashara, that's not them. So connect your vision with your employer's vision. And I also like speaking
I like that. Connect your vision with the employer's vision.
Yes, look for a way of plugging into that vision without conflict of interest. And I also like speaking to employers. Nurture your employees.
That's very important also.
Yes,
nurture
also to
your employees.
Nurture your employees. If you see somebody has a talent in them, give them the leeway to exploit that talent, because they're also your brand ambassador. All right? They thrive. If your employee thrives, they carry your brand with them as well. So employers also nurture your employees. Let it be a win-win situation. And employees, look after the business of your employer. Roho safi. Give your all. And God is a rewarder.
Give your all.
Yes, give your all. God is a rewarder.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Now, Daisy, finally, where can our viewers get this book and even the magazine that you also launched, with the same title?
Yes.
How can they be able to get this book? And can one even get one of the books that you already have?
Great. First and foremost, I would like to offer these 3 copies to KBC viewers.
So for our viewers, these are your books.
Yes. So I'll leave it to you to figure out who gets a copy. So you can get a copy of my book through my website, which is www.beyond8to5.co.ke. 8 and 5 is a digit. Also connect with me on my digital handles. That is Facebook Beyond 8 to 5, Twitter Beyond 8 to 5, Instagram Beyond 8 to 5, LinkedIn Beyond 8 to 5.
Everywhere Beyond 8 to 5.
8 to 5. And you can also look out for Daisy Nyaga for a more personal connection. Yes.
Okay, and now Daisy, I think just to make it fair for our viewers, maybe we can just say via our social media platforms at KBC Channel 1 TV, for those that have been watching this conversation, maybe our viewer can tell us what has been the greatest lesson they have learned from you as a mentor, someone who empowers young people, and then we'll see who we can give one of these books from what they have learned.
Yes.
Will that be fair enough?
That's fair enough. Yes.
All right.
Yes. And we appreciate their tuning in.
Yeah, their viewership as well.
Yes.
All right, thank you so much, Daisy. That's all the time we had, we had for this morning in regards to that topic, and really appreciate so much the kind of nuggets you've given us, at least just better understand how we can navigate the employment scene and what we can do beyond just employment.
Thank you.
We
Thank you for having me.
And we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
All right, and that has been Daisy Nyaga, Chief Operations Officer of Bridges Credit Africa, who also doubles up as an author, talking to us about matters empowerment, specifically youth empowerment, how we can be able to navigate the employment scene and even just do more and beyond just being employed and being in an employment kind of setup. That's all the time we had for this morning. We take a very quick break. We'll be back with more. Stay with us. Good morning once again. Thank you for keeping us company. And we continue talking about matters that are close to our hearts, especially during these uncertain times of COVID-19. Now, 3 billion shillings as emergency allowance for frontline workers has been released. Now, 20,000 is the amount of amount each doctor, dentist, and pharmacist will receive as risk allowance, while the nurses and clinical officers and laboratory tech are going to get 15,000 shillings. But is this enough for frontline workers? This morning, I'm joined by 2 ladies who happen to be a nurse and also a pediatric critical care nurse, as well as a midwife. Good morning, ladies. Glad to have you on board. And let me just start by appreciating what you do in your day-to-day lives. It's a calling. It is not easy. And the issue of COVID-19 has exacerbated that issue of uncertainty and just your safety. So we appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. Now let's start off with Florence Munoru, who is a midwife based in Isiolo and a senior nursing nurse, to just tell us the challenges that they have been going through in as far as nursing is concerned, especially during this COVID times, as well as Aguko, who is a pediatric critical care nurse. We've just seen them there on screen. Maybe we can have a shot of them again so that we can know who is Florence and who is Aguko. So ladies, we're going to be talking, so that is Florence Munoru. How about you just give us a quick overview of what you think, in light of the current increase of COVID-19 cases, what are your main concerns in your line of duty? Florence.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Florence Munoru, and I would say that most of the challenges that we are facing as nurses and midwives, personally, I work in the maternity department, and we have seen so many changes that have come up because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And one of the things that has really brought us, I would say, to a crossroad is how we are supposed to handle the mothers at this time. We are having a downward surge of mothers who are attending the antenatal clinic, mothers who are coming for the family planning clinic, mothers who are bringing their children to the child welfare clinic. We also have a downward surge of numbers on the mothers who are coming to seek maternity services. Mothers who are supposed to come to the hospital, majority now are delivering at home. This is because people feel that when they come to the hospital, there is a likelihood that they increase the chances of getting infected. So they are staying at home. And it becomes very difficult for us even to reach them at the community, even to go to them. It becomes a bit hard even to trace them. That is the biggest challenge that we have experienced. We have experienced as midwives, and I would say that, let me talk on the midwifery part.
Now, as a midwife there, you've shared your challenges is that mothers are not seeking maternity services. Then, from where you sit then, what can be done to encourage these mothers to come for these particular services? Because I mean, like an antenatal clinic is very key for both the mother and the child. So what do you think needs to be done to encourage these women to also just continue seeking these, very important services, even with the uncertainty around COVID-19?
Yeah, I would urge, especially the government of the day, the county government in conjunction with the national government, that if possible, there must be a way whereby the nurses can be sent and the midwives to the community. I was thinking of an issue whereby the community can be subdivided in sections, and then we can have, in conjunction with the community health workers, we are able now to trace them. We meet them now at the community. But this one has not been happening as it's supposed to be. I would say, because this is a new disease that is here with us, I would suggest that now, forthwith, that the people be met at the community level. It's not only in midwifery where we have challenges. Even the people with comorbidities, the people that have hypertension, the people that have diabetes, asthma, and the chronic diseases that we see, they have not been coming to the hospital. And I'm fearing that at the end of this pandemic, we may have mothers now who have very many complications, people who have very many complications at the community, and it will be very hard for us even to manage. Like, for example, if you find a mother delivering at home, such a mother may even bleed to death, such a mother may even have tears, and in fact, when they go back now after this, it becomes very hard for us even to manage the complications. It becomes a challenge. So my request is that we have a plan to meet them at the community level.
Now, during this time, we hear what you're saying and your concerns, but Florence, if I was to ask you a direct question, what about your risk of exposure? We've already been told from the Ministry of Health, it shows that this virus is already within the communities. So for you as a midwife, and maybe this opportunity was given unto you to actually render those services, are you worried about the risk of exposure unto yourself and your colleagues?
Yeah, the risk of exposure is there, but I want to tell you something. Somebody has to be there. Somebody has to bite the gun. And who is that? That is the midwife. Much as we would say that there is the exposure, moving to the community. Like now, nurses have been trained, other healthcare workers have been trained, and we are able now to protect ourselves. Even as we move to the community, we are able to know that you move to the community, you are supposed to do a hand sanitization, you are supposed to keep a distance, and you also practice good coffee for the mothers. Now when we visit them, now you will advise them, and that is what we are doing, that everybody has to be in a mask if you must be attended at the maternity or at the casualty or whichever place. So even as we move to the community, we will be able to take the precautions, because at the end of the day, a health worker is somebody who is prepared. Initially, there were fears, and you find that most of the people, or I would say the healthcare workers, there was the fear. We felt maybe this is a disease. In fact, maybe you saw in the media that the nurses, the healthcare workers in this hospital, they saw the patient and ran away. But that is a story of the past now. So we are able and we are prepared with adequate training. We are able to meet them wherever they are.
That is Florence Minoru, who is coming to us live, part of the frontline workers who are dealing with this issue, and her concern is that mothers are not seeking maternal services, and she's concerned that after COVID-19 pandemic, that women are going to be dealing with so much more. Her call is to have, various county governments come into place as well as the national government to ensure that these services are delivered, even if it's within, just at home. They're ready to render that, ready to bite the bullet there. I wonder, in as far as pediatric critical care is concerned, are these the same challenges that you're going through? Or maybe you can just highlight, are you in tandem with what Florence there has said in regard to challenges that are being met by frontline workers? Now we've talked about the issue of maternity, now we want pediatric care. Are these the same challenges or are they different? Awar?
Thank you, Regina. Good morning.
Good morning to you too. Yes.
I must say that the pediatric environment is slightly different from that which is maternal or maternity kind of setting, because like we know, children are very intricate human beings with very self-tailored sort of needs, and that of course calls for a concerted effort when you're handling them. In the pediatric critical care setting, the kind of approach that we offer during the care of our patients is a family-centered care. And family-centered care means that we have the family fully involved at every stage of the care of the patient, which is a child in this case, any child under 13 years. And there is a team or a concerted effort also from the healthcare professional perspective, where we have various cadres of professionals coming in to help with the care of these patients. And that of course means the challenges that we experience are quite diverse. The COVID pandemic has actually brought us new challenges that probably we didn't experience earlier before. But as we all know, our health-seeking behaviors as Kenyans has always been a challenge. We will often go to seek healthcare when we are at a very bad situation, probably mismanaged out there. And so the kind of patients we therefore get to receive at the end of the chain of service delivery in the healthcare sector are patients who are severely sick, seriously sick. That's one challenge that has been aggravated by COVID. Like my sister Florence said, that the COVID pandemic has made Kenyans develop a fear for the hospital.
A fear for the hospital there. Now, before Kenya confirmed its first case of COVID-19, and that is March, there was talk going around that children are not susceptible to COVID-19. But over the last few months, we've seen even children as young as months old, contracting this virus. From where you sit, these are your primary target patients. Yes. How has this then affected pediatric nursing care in these times? How has it been affected?
It's amazing that we have always viewed children as these harmless people, and therefore the approach that they're even given during care or healthcare service delivery is that of people who are not as infectious as others. Sadly, the dynamics have changed, and now we are seeing children coming in with COVID infection because of probably the kind of contact they have with their parents, because of the consistent need they have for care from their parents. They're not independent human beings. The unrestricted interaction between children is a challenge. And so that has made us go a step ahead and realize that much as we are taking care of children, we have to consider them as high alert people. They are highly infectious people. And remember, in pediatric critical care, the kind of situations that we see are children who come in with respiratory issues. They are in need of life support. What does that therefore mean? COVID is primarily a respiratory system problem. Like they say, it's a flu of sorts. And so every child that has come to our unit currently as it is has to be tested for COVID, and each one of them is treated as high index patients, whether they turn positive or not, because there are cases that we have also admitted with a negative COVID test result, and a couple of weeks later they have shown signs, and when they were tested, they turned positive. So it has made us also become more aggressive with how we protect ourselves by using proper PPEs in the middle of sometimes non-existent or very restricted supply of PPEs. It has also have as overstretched ourselves in terms of service delivery, because a majority of nurses are now doing longer shifts at their workplaces because of one, shortage of healthcare professionals, and two, because of the recently discontinued curfew hours. And a lot has changed within the nursing system as related to COVID pandemic.
Aguko, who is a pediatric critical care nurse, saying that indeed, you know, our dynamics as Kenyans, you and I, we seek medical help when we are almost at critical stages of that particular infection or whatever it is that has taken us to hospital, and this in one way or another has now been exacerbated by COVID-19, and pressures keep mounting, especially where children are concerned. Now any child who accesses a medical facility has to go through the COVID-19 test, because unlike in the past where it was assumed that children are not vulnerable, rather susceptible to the virus, well, we have seen, and history has proved, we are currently experiencing, you know, ages of even recording ages of even months, you know, children who are just months old contracting the virus there. We're talking to frontline workers to just find out, and as they share their experiences in regard to the challenges that they're facing as they deliver their much needed services at a time when increased cases of COVID-19 are on the rise here locally. I want to take it back to Florence Munoru, who is live from Isiolo. Earlier on, you had mentioned, Florence, that your main concern is that mothers are not seeking maternity help and maternity services, and you wanted the national government as well as the county government to step in. You said you're not worried per se about the risk of exposure because that's your line of work. But then the question is, what are you doing to manage, you know, on an individual level to ensure that Florence Munoru remains safe and healthy? You know, this pressure, you're working long hours, as Awur has said. What are you doing as an individual to ensure that you remain in tip-top health so that you can continue delivering your services?
Okay, as pertains personally, as an individual, as pertains the issue of how I would keep safe, there are things that we've been trained upon on what to do, the distance that we are supposed to maintain. There is also the eating well. You look at yourself, because our work really takes quite some strength and energy even to perform. Something else that I also look at as an individual is the hygiene, washing of hands. Walking with a hand sanitizer in my pocket looks weird, but that is something that every health worker is supposed to have, because at times you will move, as you move along in the ward, you are touching patients. Other times you touch their belongings. You also touch the environment, and it has become part of me now. Along with the hand sanitizer. Another thing that I'm observing is putting on of the mask. Very important, because the surgical mask is something that is supposed to be worn by every health worker, and especially when you're working in the hospital environment, it becomes a bit hard even to move with the mask from morning to evening. But it has come to be part of what we are supposed to. In fact, I would call it part of the uniform. And also as an individual, I'm reading so much on COVID-19 because I would not want to be caught unawares. Like, for example, when I find a patient who comes the first thing that I advise is to keep at least some distance, and I explain politely. There's something that is called providing of honorable maternal care. When a client comes, I politely explain to her and whoever is accompanying her, it's good for us to keep some distance because we have the corona with us. Anybody who comes, like a mother who wakes up in the morning in labor pains, that is somebody who will not even remember to come along with a mask.
Yes.
I have some masks nearby where I will pick one and advise them. You are aware we have this problem with us, and it is advisable if all of us would keep safe. Another thing that I would also I want to keep safe mentally. We have a call center at the National Nurses Association of Kenya, and that call center is a place where we keep constant communication. If you feel overwhelmed, if you feel that things are not going right, there are counselors there, and then we talk to them. Maybe at the end of the show, or maybe right now, I can give the number to another healthcare worker who feels overwhelmed by the circumstances, because psychological aspect is one thing that really must be taken care of. We have found colleagues who have been infected, and it is, I would say, much as we have been trained along the line, somewhere you can't miss a few casualties. We have a few casualties, health workers in Kenya, and most of them are nurses. And there's been our ear of the nurse and the midwife. There's one thing that is being emphasized, and I take it upon myself as a midwife, personally, that I should protect myself. I should protect those around us, my colleagues. How do we relate? How close are we during tea time, during the chat times? You know, at times we go sit down and we talk to each other, we have fun, we talk, and at that time, those are times when people get so close. But now we keep reminding ourselves, and it has become, I would say, it is becoming part of our routine, much as there is the challenge.
Maybe before we let you go and rope in Awor and hear what she has to say, you can just share that particular helpline that is dedicated for health workers who feel that they need just someone to talk to and share their experiences, you know, the pressure amid the mounting pressure of COVID-19. Share with us that contact, Florence.
Yeah, the number is 08 00 72
72
006
006
no
06
08
08 08 00 72 06 08. That's the number for, you know, if you need someone to just talk to, and you're within, you know, one of the frontline workers, and you feel the pressure that is mounting is too much and you need help. Well, that's the line, 08 00 72 06 08. Get sharing. They say a problem shared is halfway solved. Just talk to someone. Now, let's rope in Awor and hear what she has to say in regard to just what she's doing in her line of work to ensure that she remains in good health. Other than just contracting COVID-19, there's the issue of, working longer hours, the stress and all that. Awor would want to know what you're doing on an individual capacity to ensure that you remain healthy.
Regina, I must admit that this COVID pandemic season has actually been one of the most exciting experiences of my professional journey, and it has made me become more self-aware as an individual while in line of duty. And what does that mean? I've had to go an extra length to protect myself mentally and emotionally. As much as possible, try to remain mentally stable, and the critical care environment, or ICUs, as a majority of us know it as, is a quite taxing environment, and it's quite stressful. So I've had to go an extra length to just keep myself emotionally stable, check on myself mentally very regularly, spend as much as possible time with my family, away from the work environment, much as now we are doing longer hours, the little time that I get off work is strictly devoted to family and myself. I've had to become that selfish. My nutrition has had to go a notch higher. I am doing more fruits, I am doing more vegetables, and this is my call to my colleagues that check on your nutrition. I know most times our work, like they say, it's a call, sometimes robs us of time to even take care of ourselves. Go a step higher. Do yourself some juices, juices. Do your fruits. Do your vegetables, and of course, as much as possible, try and balance your diet. It's hilarious that I was talking to a colleague of mine recently, and she told me at the beginning of this pandemic, because of the knowledge gaps that existed, considering it's a novel situation, she went ahead and even drew her will. She wrote her will, and when we inquired from the rest of our colleagues about what they thought at the beginning of it, they were like, it was quite rather a scary situation because we did not know how it was going to fold. But yeah, people have gone ahead and even done their wills. There are employers who have gone ahead and given us insurance covers, life insurance covers, which of course, when you're filling out, elicit the thoughts of you kind of being in a situation like you're going into a battlefield and you do not know how it's going to turn out, whether you're going to come out a casualty, whether you're going to be the collateral damage in the sense that you end up dying. But so far so good that the numbers that we are seeing of our colleagues who have probably been infected is not as bad as we had so far anticipated. But yes, people are getting infected. We have so far lost about 2 of us, may they rest in peace. And that has also brought us to the realization that it is not as bad as we thought it would be. And so has given me a sort of stability, an emotional stability when it comes to handling this COVID pandemic. And the last thing that I have done as regards self-care, I have gone ahead and just updated myself with the information out there because, like I had earlier mentioned, there has been knowledge gaps. So this, of course, has meant that you go an extra length and read articles out there and information that you can readily get from websites that are acknowledged and books. And yeah, just update myself professionally.
Awar, in your line of work, have you, in one way or another, be subjected to issues of stigma? And what is your take on issues of stigma? Because from the Ministry of Health data, it says that, you know, most people who are recovering from COVID-19 are facing a lot of stigma when they return back to their homes. Yourself, you are handling, you know, these issues. You're a frontline worker. Have you experienced any form of stigma? You know, may not be within your workplace, but maybe, you know, within the community, because you're a frontline worker. Have you?
I must admit that at the beginning of this pandemic, it was quite unexpected what was going to happen. And there's this one time that I was in contact with a patient that was COVID positive. And personally, I was also taken aback, but not as much as my family. And so I talked to one of my family members and told them that this is what had happened, and we are waiting for our test results and so on and so forth. I was quite calm about it, but it's interesting how word went around. And in no time, calls were coming in and they were asking me, "Are you okay? What's happening?" And it was so obvious that family was quite shaken about what was going on. At a personal level, that I would not therefore call stigma, but kind of a situation that made my family a bit shaken. Within my residential environment, I think I have the most amazing neighbors around. They actually check on us on phone, and we check on each other on phone. My colleagues have had to encounter situations of stigma. I remember recently when we were going through a psychosocial therapy, a group psychosocial therapy with colleagues of mine, and one opened up to say that a neighbor actually severely warned her children not to interact with her children. Why? Because their mother was a healthcare worker, the mother was a nurse, and therefore she was going to carry home COVID. And there has been such cases of colleagues admitting that people have looked at them with, that suspicious eye and so on and so forth. But I think as time goes by, people are now more knowledgeable. People are now more settled into this situation, much as we are not out of the woods. And isn't the situation that would otherwise be termed as stigma. And going forward, I want to believe we're going to see better interaction and better handling of people who are positive or people who are perceived to be potentially positive by both the public and healthcare workers.
Thank you very much for sharing that experience there, Awar. And indeed, you've highlighted something, the issue of stigma. The community is still yet to come to terms, with how to deal with the numbers that are recovering from COVID-19. Florence Munoru from Isiolo, who is a midwife, senior nursing officer. How has been your experience? Have you experienced a stigma in your line, in your profession? Or do you know some of your colleagues who have, in one way or another, had to endure that kind of treatment, cold shoulder treatment, suspicious eyes, as Awar has rightly put there, simply because you've interacted or handled a case of COVID-19?
Yeah, the stigma was there initially, but with time, people are coming to understand that this is not a disease that should instill such great fear as it should. Okay, in our setup, initially there was some challenges because people felt because you're working in the hospital, you must have COVID. And I remember there's a day that I wanted to go to town, and I looked for somebody. A motorcycle bonda guy told me, no. I hear you have been working. There's a time I was working in the isolation ward in the initial stages, and he told me, no, I cannot take you to town. And I didn't understand. I thought maybe we had met somewhere. But as we sat down with our colleagues during some psychosocial support meeting, and they told me even the bonda guys don't want to take us to town. And I said, oh, that was the reason. So, but nowadays it is not as much. I would also say that in the initial stages there was quite some fear. The fear of COVID-19 was very high, but with the knowledge base increasing, it has gone down, and people are now taking us normally. Our neighbors are treating us well, and there is no, I would say, so far there isn't any much challenge now. And with the sensitization that has been done to the community, and people have seen that this is a disease that somewhere along the line we can live with. It's like now people are getting used to the issues that are happening around us.
I'm glad that now you can hop into a boda without feeling as if, sticking out and, courtesy of what you're doing. Now, a question that has come up from our viewer is to just elaborate. I think this is a concerned mother-to-be saying, is there a risk of mother-to-child transmission of COVID-19?
During pregnancy, during labor, so far no research has established that. And the research is ongoing, and we haven't heard of any. And because research is ongoing, if anything comes up, then we will inform police, and at least something will be done. During breastfeeding, we are advising mothers, if somebody is having a COVID-19 disease, the best that they can do is that they are supposed to observe high level of hygiene, especially the washing of hands. They also must put down a mask. It's recommended that they have an N95 when they are breastfeeding the baby. The breasts are also supposed to be cleaned. Initially, the baby was being put away from the mother, separated. And when you separate a newborn baby with the mother, the challenge comes up whereby the dangers are more. The baby will be isolated. But now precautions are being put in place such that these mothers don't pass the infection to the baby during breastfeeding.
So are you saying, Florence, I need a clarification on this. Are you saying that it is safe for a COVID positive mom to breastfeed their young one?
Exactly. Breast milk is the best that can be given to any baby. And that is why we recommend exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months. No water, no milk, no supplementary feeds, just breast milk. Breast milk is a balanced diet on its own. The dangers of putting the baby away from the mother, the danger of not putting the baby on the breast is far much worse than when you breastfeed that baby. With adequate precautions, that baby will be safe.
Thank you very much for sharing that insight. Our viewer here, I hope they have heard that it is safe. Now, no research has come out to show if there is a mother-to-child transmission of COVID-19, but what we know and hearing from a senior nursing officer with and a midwife from Isiolo, Florence Munoru, says currently breastfeeding is still safe, the safest form of nourishing a newborn baby. So you are at ease, whether you're a mom or just concerned because someone else is a mom and breastfeeding at this time. I want to take you over. I want to bring Rope in a word also because there's the issue of, just handling children at home during this COVID-19 situation. Having dealt with children, what advice would you give to parents or guardians who are, watching over the young ones? Schools are going to reopen next year, so we are home with our children for the long haul. In light of the increased cases of COVID-19, what precautionary measures would you want to share with us as parents?
This is my call to parents. Thank you, Regina. That it's our responsibility to keep watch over our children. It gets a bit concerning when you hear parents lamenting about schools reopening being delayed or postponed to next year. But I want to take this as an opportunity. I want to look at it as an opportunity for parents to interact with their children, because as a critical care nurse, I look at the holistic health of a child. I do not just look at a child who comes to the hospital sick and requires ICU admission as a sick child. There are children who suffer from psychological neglect or abuse, and largely it's because of the absence of parents in their lives, or parents who are chronically busy out there chasing money and trying to build careers, which is not wrong, but it's important that we find the balance as parents to create time for our children. Two, in light of the pandemic, it's our responsibility to keep our children in the houses. This break from the academic engagement is not a holiday. It is not a time for children to get time to play. It's a time to keep children safe until it is safe enough for them to be out there. So minimize the contact of your children with other children out there. Treat every case as a potentially positive case. No neighbor's child is safe. No relative that comes to your house is safe. The thing is, we must reduce the number of, the flow of people into our house, the traffic of people into our houses. Our visitors, our relatives, we have to cut down on that. And when we absolutely have to have visitors, then the first thing that you need to consider is their hygiene. Offer them water, running water, and soap to wash their hands. If then that is not possible, provide them with a sanitizer. Reduce their contact with your children. If you have new babies around you, newborn babies around you, as much as possible, just avoid giving people your babies to hold. And I know they would understand if you explain that to them. The last thing I would want to tell parents out there is that do not be afraid to seek health care services. Do not delay to come to the hospitals for whatever reason, whether it's just the common flu that our children often suffer from, or it's an injury, whatever kind of situation you find yourself in and you might need to seek healthcare provision or services, please utilize the hospitals. We are here for you. We are here for our children, and no child should be denied the opportunity to be given healthcare because they are our tomorrow, they are our future.
Now, before I let you go, I'd want to just pick your brain. Is that a 3 billion shillings emergency allowance for frontline workers teams have been released. Now, the amount that is going to be given to nurses, clinical officers, lab techs, and technologists is 15,000 shillings. What's your take on this?
Thank you, Regina. I cannot overemphasize the role of a nurse in healthcare system as a whole, and now even more in this pandemic. We are now more professionally visible, and we have come out as the front line of the healthcare workers, or rather the healthcare work system. We want to thank our government for this token of appreciation. But again, the value of nurses cannot be pegged on just finances. There's much more that we can do to our nurses. And as our employers, we want to remind you that when your nurse is happy, the rest is happy, the patient is happy, the family is happy, and the community at large is happy. Because look at it this way. The nurse provides healthcare from the most basic of healthcare structures at the preventive level of infection, at curative level, where now I provide the services that I'm providing and that which Flora Monoro is doing. We are at the rehabilitative level. We are at the community level where we give healthcare education. We are researchers. And by the way, this COVID season has also brought out the acumen of nurses in scientific researches, just like any other scientific professions are concerned. We need to appreciate our nurses more. This is the year of the nurse, the year 2020, and we are actually celebrating the 200th anniversary of the death of the founder of nursing, Florence Nightingale. It is a time and an opportune moment for us to revisit the professional injustices that have been meted on nurses by virtue of being underpaid, by virtue of being appreciated, and therefore we urge our government and our employers to rethink their position about nurses. We thought that we would have seen a change of things now that COVID has totally painted a different picture of nurses. You walk into a COVID isolation unit today, Regina, one thing you can be sure about is you are going to meet a nurse in that unit at 7 a.m. or 7 p.m. in the evening, or 1 a.m. in the night. We are working around the clock. And this is not to underemphasize the important role that our colleagues play in service delivery and ensuring good outcomes in the healthcare service provision. But we are just trying to say that we deserve better as nurses, and this token of appreciation is highly welcome, but we believe that we can do more than that. On top of that, we would also wish to urge our government, the county governments, and other employers out there to consider offering insurance covers to nurses, medical covers, and life insurance. It is an unfortunate situation that you're able to offer a service that personally you cannot afford. The other day, sorry to sound personal, I went to visit an ophthalmologist to have a check on my eye and a review of my glasses. It is sad that I could not access these services because the cover that I have does not take care of that. And I had to dig into my pocket. And I was left wondering how many of my colleagues out there are able to pay for these kind of services. There are people who need dental services. They are not able to access because of the medical cover that we have. Yet we are the same people who work in ophthalmology clinics, We work in dental clinics. We offer very vital services in setups like renal units, dialyzing patients 24/7. We are offering ICU care, ventilating patients. Like now, COVID has exposed what ICU looks like. The machines that are so complicated are run by nurses, by the way. When it comes to infection control and policy making, nurses are largely involved. Departments of infection control are actually manned by nurses. It is high time that employers and government, being the largest employer of nurses, started appreciating nurses who they truly are.
We cannot re-emphasize. We cannot emphasize more on that. What you say, we hear you, frontline workers. To this morning we've been talking to two ladies who happen to be frontline workers. One keenly dealing with children, the other one dealing with the mother and child, midwifery and pediatric critical care nurse. That is a war au pair. Says government, and the main employer being government, that is, of nurses, need to appreciate nurses more. We cannot overemphasize the need for that. How about, before we close, we also rope in Florence Minoru all the way live from Isiolo to give her parting word. During this time, as you say, this year is the year of nurses, marking exactly 200 years after the pioneer nurse Florence Nightingale just started off the issue of, or rather started off, nursing as it is. What's your take, Florence, as we come to a close? So, Florence, we'd want to hear your parting word there in regard to this issue, with the current situation of COVID-19 and your line of work of, maternity services. Among the concerns that you have raised is that mothers are now scared and are fearful of seeking out maternity services, yet these are crucial services. Earlier on, if anyone missed that particular conversation, is that Florence Minoru says that she is worried as a midwife that after COVID-19 that mothers and children who have not gotten the required maternity services might be exposed and might end up dealing with issues that are more critical than what they had before. Women are delivering at home, the risk of exposure, and her call to national government as well as the county government is to ensure that the midwives can reach these mothers at the comfort of their home with minimal exposure to them as midwives and also the mother and child. A question here was asked by one of our viewers is if there is a transmission, if there is a confirmation of mother to child transmission of COVID-19. What response we got from Florence Minoru there, who's a midwife. She says research is still ongoing, but they've not had to deal with such an issue. However, she emphasized that breastfeeding is still the safest form of nourishment, especially for a newborn, and it has to be safe. The mother has to be clean, the breast has to be clean. They have it's recommended that you have an N95 mask while you're breastfeeding. So the viewer who had asked that question, I hope it has been fully answered, and continue breastfeeding that baby, and and minimal risk to the baby and yourself. I understand we have Florence on the line again. Florence, I was just doing a take-home summary of what you had shared earlier as we were trying to stabilize your feed. Now, as you come to a close, from where you sit, I'd want to hear recommendations and advice that you'd give going forward in regard to just how the government is treating frontline workers. We understand that 3 billion shillings have been is going to be an allowance, is going to be released. 15K for nurses, clinical officers, lab techs and technologists. Let's start from there. What is your take in this regard?
Yeah, I want to seriously talk on the token that the president gave us. And what the president gave us was in goodwill. It's a surprise that 3 months down the line, that money has not reached our banks, has not reached our pockets. This one spells clearly that somewhere along the line, we have not taken health seriously. I cannot emphasize, as Lisa's put it, the importance of the nurse at this time. even during the past times. Nurses are researchers. Nurses are entrepreneurs. Nurses are educators. Nurses are consultants. A very good example when you look at the work that we are doing. If, for example, today, somebody from the, sorry to use the military, I'm not comparing, if somebody was to be taken to another country to go and fight for the country or to go and put some reinforcement, that person will really be reinforced, both from out of the country and even by our government. Is a disease that nobody can talk of as being a disease that can be joked along. This is putting our lives in the balance. I would say it is either you are sick with COVID or somebody that has had the infection. Come to think of it, if the military can be given money to go and fight, this is a disease that nobody can see. This is a bullet that nobody can withstand because it's not visible. It is invisible. When we talk of something that is invisible, it means it affects the deeper parts of the individual. Now, we are here as the frontline health workers. We have come out and we have said, fine, the disease is here with us and we must fight. We must fight this disease. We have given our all. A very good example. Then clothes, the PPEs that you see, especially the coverall, that putting on that attire is not easy. I am imagining myself dressed like an astronaut who is going to the moon, and then somebody is really joking around with whatever that is happening around. I'm looking at a scenario whereby every patient who comes, that person is welcomed to the hospital by a health worker, and especially the nurses. The nurses are there with the patient on 24-hour basis. If anything, you cannot leave your workplace before your colleague has come on duty. You have to hand over the patients. You have to tell your colleague, this one is going on well, and this is it. We are working long hours. And I can tell you, much as we would want to say that working in the hospital is our call, we agree somewhere along the line it's a call. But the thing is, we have children, we have to pay school fees, we have to pay our school fees also. Some of us are in school, and it's a surprise that people, I would say, most people will not want to acknowledge. They think nurses are people who are seated at the bedside. Most of us are professors in the universities. Most of us have PhDs. Most of us have masters. We have degrees. We are people who are learning. It's not only that our work is to dress wood and maybe put the manual work. It is important for the workers who are there to be looked upon as our people who can be called upon any day, any time. We give our brains to give patient care. Like a very good example, if you walk in any maternity right now, the first person who meets you is a midwife. If a decision has to be made, that midwife has already made the decision. And we explain to the mother, this one is happening, you have to go for an operation. Look at a place like casualty. You meet the nurse as casualty. I'm sorry to say, but we must also remember, if this person is lucky enough to go home, that the last person to see as they leave the ward is the nurse. When the person comes to the hospital, the first person to meet is the nurse. The nurse is somebody who has been shelved and looks like that nurse is, I would say, secondary. But in fact, and the real thing is, the nurse is the primary health care giver at any level. Mover at the dispensary level. When you go to the dispensary level, the person who is running that place is the nurse. She or he is the person that clerks those patients. Our grandmothers at home, it's the nurse who is taking care of them. So it beats logic when it comes to a point that the nurse is now considered as a second-hand person. I would say that let the government, let the people recognize that nurses are not just, I would say, simple people. And nurses need to be considered. They need to be moved a higher level. This one, like now, for example, the disease burden. If you look at the health workers who have been infected, the majority of those people are nurses. What does that tell us? It tells us these are the people who are taking care of the patient. These are the people who are more exposure to the disease. Like, for example, look at the statistics. My sister Liz has talked of having lost 2 colleagues. By the way, those are nurses. Those are people who have not seen this money that the president has even given us. They didn't even enjoy that money. So it tells us somewhere along the line, some seriousness needs to be put into health. A country that puts their health as a priority, that country will never lack voters. Because I'm sorry to say, in this country, we look at issues. We look at people like voters. We want them to come and vote for us. But when it comes to working for them, it becomes a challenge. There was a directive from Ministry of Health that the people who have lagged, stagnated in job, as a way of motivating them, these people need to be promoted. But now, how many counties have done that? Most of the counties are not even taking health as a priority. I'm sorry to say, but at the end of the day, we need to look at health with another angle. A good example, like the National Nurses Association of Kenya, this being the year of the nurse and the midwife, we are trying as much as possible to uplift the status of the nurse. A good example, if you look at the research that is taking place, you will find most of the researchers are nurses, the people that are coming up with policies, the people that are coming up with the recommendations, they are the nurses. It tells you that nurses are brilliant. Nurses are people who can solve solutions, who can solve problems. Nurses are people who can work and work well. I hope and pray that at the end of the day, this is our year. The WHO has recognized that 2020 is the year of the nurse and the midwife. On all these things, it is upon now our country, the government, the national government, the public, and even the media. I really appreciate so much. I remember you have been helping us, even uplifting our profession, showing people what we do. We really appreciate you people. Now, I hope this one now can be converted into some, I would call it financial appreciation, not from the media, not from the public, but from the government of Kenya. So much money is being invested in health. If a nurse is happy, I can tell you the truth. Look at my colleagues who are working in the USA. Nurses are moving out of the country. They want to work in USA, in other countries.
Brain drain, because we are not, what I'm hearing you say, Florence, is that we are not appreciative enough of nurses, yet they are an integral part, you know, of the healthcare system.
Yeah.
And now just to wind up, I'd want to support what you're saying, and we have a viewer who is on Twitter, and it says, Mafumbo Alan on Twitter says, it's unfortunate that several months down the line, nurses are still out in the cold. Who ate the stimulus package? There is no hypocrisy greater than expecting victory in a war, yet you mistreat the frontline soldiers. Hashtag reward nurses accordingly. Those are views of Mafumbo Alan on Twitter. Siding with what you have said there, Florence, that it's the high time that your appeal to government as well as the county, both levels of government, county level, national level, to just also appreciate the role that nurses play in as far as the healthcare system is concerned. And I thought what you said is that nurses are not just second-hand. They are not second-rate or second-hand care providers, and they are not manual laborers. Actually, what came out as fun there is that you said you have to wear that overall because of this COVID-19, and someone is making fun about the role that you have to play as a nurse. I hope and trust that relevant authorities are looking into this issue accordingly. The year 2020 is indeed the year for nurses and midwives. We hope that this is going to change, and I'm going to wind up at this point. Thank you very much for coming on board, being with us, taking time to be with us, Florence Munoru, all the way live from Isiolo, as well as Awor Ope from Nairobi, sharing their experiences, one within the maternity ward, the other one dealing with pediatric critical care. We appreciate you. You're doing an awesome job. every time. So thank you very much. Continue with the faith. We'll keep praying for you, because if you let go of the ball, then it means we are through and through, and that is not a place we want to get to. The take home today is, when the nurse is happy, the patient is happy, the doctor is happy, the patient's family is happy, and the facility is happy. Let us reward our nurses better, or rather accordingly, as Mafumbo Alan has said that on Twitter. I'm Regina Manyara. I appreciate you having been on board with us from 7 a.m. till now. Let us meet tomorrow, same time, and you're going to be talking to our children, talking about issues of mental wellness. 1 out of 4 one out of 4 of us as Kenyans is dealing with a mental issue. So do keep it right here. Thank you very much for your time. Same time tomorrow, we meet on Good Morning Kenya.
My name is Eric Sticky Mureithi, and I'm an artist, and this is my solo exhibition. I've been working professionally for the last 5 years, and I'm feeling like this is a bold new step to getting my art outside the studio to the outside world, to more clients and all that. Becoming jobless inspired me a lot, because I figured if I can do something and just make a few coins of it, then perhaps if I become more aggressive, I'll be able to make a living off it. So I became an artist and met an artist called Patrick Mukabi from the Go Down Art Center, who fortunately became my mentor, and he's still my mentor now. So I'd say it's been a heck of a journey. I was born an artist, but I think I was more aggressive and really wanted this thing, because I've been drawing ever since I started learning how to write and how to hold a pencil. So yeah, that's basically a brief history of what really being an artist entails. The exhibition is Watu, Viatu na Mavazi. So for Mavazi, I'm intrigued by fashion. I grew up in the 90s, and in the 90s, if you notice, people are colorful and funky, trying to be MC Hammer and all those hip-hop and R&B musicians of the 90s. So I kind of I'd say I was stuck in that era, or was inspired with that era. So I tried to translate all that into like my paintings. People expect that when you're painting, it's either you're painting a portrait or a landscape or like wildlife. But there's more things, there's more than one, there's more subjects that you can do. So for me, clothes, even when I started art, I started painting shoes and painting t-shirts and denim jackets. Now I moved on to canvas and graffiti. So I'd say I still pretty much got stuck into the fabric world. It intrigues me a lot. Trust me. And then Watu, people inspire me. You can never miss inspiration from people. You have amazing people around you. People who have different stories. They're the reason why you're around, because they are brothers, your sisters, your mentors, etc. And then Viatu, I'm a traveler. I have a fetish for shoes. So I keep, instead, my way of expressing the fetish is onto canvas, onto graffiti, or whatever style, whatever medium I can get. You expect me, even in my 60s, to still be painting funky shoes. my style, I'd say, is a bit of everything. I tend to believe that I'm not a one-dimensional artist. I try to blend in a lot of stuff that I pick on the way, borrow from other artists. It's never too wrong to like have an influence from someone. So for me, anything goes. I'd say I'm an impressionist. Sometimes I veer off into graffiti. Sometimes I try fine art. So it's like a cocktail of different styles. For me, inspiration comes from everywhere, any place, any situation. I consider everything to be my inspiration. I don't necessarily say my subjects are my inspiration, but a subject can be inspired by something totally different. You might be satisfied and decide to paint a pair of colorful shoes. How can you try mixing the two? You know, because I think the notion that people have your inspiration is necessarily your subjects, but that's wrong. That's not true. Inspiration comes from different points, and the way you translate it is what really matters. Because at the end of the day, you'll be judged by what you create rather than what you theorize about. Yeah. I think majority of my